of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So let's just take a moment of silence to reflect on our charge tonight for the budget and moving the district forward. Thank you. So again, welcome everyone. Tonight is looks like our one and only budget workshop to discuss the fiscal year 27 budget. As you know, the school committee was introduced to the proposed fiscal year 27 budget last month at our January meeting. Superintendent Picard gave a presentation, and we as a body had the opportunity to hear Gina's presentation a second time at the omnibus meeting. So at our February 10th school committee meeting next week, we will continue the budget discussion, and at that time, our body will be charged with approving the budget. The annual regional school district's public hearing on the budget is scheduled for Tuesday, March 3rd, and that's the evening where we need 25 voters from each town, and we'll take feedback from the community on the budget. And then we adopt the budget at the school committee meeting of March 10th. The format tonight is a workshop where the school committee members can ask questions of the administration and discuss potential revisions to the budget. Gina has some updates to her slides, I believe, from last month. So I will turn it over to Gina, but for the school committee members, I think what might be efficient tonight is, I'll ask anyone around the table if they have questions. So if you want to raise your hand, I'll put you in the queue for questions. Ask your, maybe 2 or 3 most pressing questions. So we'll give you one round of questions. We'll get through everyone. And then if you have a second round of questions, we'll go back and go to a second round of questions. Okay? Upon the conclusion of the school committee members' full complement of questions, I'd be happy to open it up to the public if the public has any thoughts or input on the fiscal year 27 budget. With that, I will turn it over to the superintendent. Maybe not.
You're good? Right. So, thank you all. As you know, we're sort of shifting around the way we present the budget because we do feel that there's some confusion that lies around, especially where the more that we can clarify and make it transparent and clear, the more understanding that there is across communities. So one of the things that we decided to do was my presentation was removed out of the budget book for the school committee members because it is a live document that gets updated and it should be able to be utilized at meetings like this for you to be able to ask me to update based on information that would be helpful. So prior to this budget season, the budget subcommittee had met, and I've met with the chair, and to try to get and hone in on the kind of language that would be helpful to make the budget thoughtful and transparent more for the community. And I think I feel as though the omnibus was a very good way for us to collaborate across the 3 towns and the Chariho School District. And I felt very pleased about the feedback I received from both town council members and members of the public. And I do feel that we're making some, really good strides at understanding how school budgets work, not just budgets. So with the budget workshop today, there was a couple of things that we thought were really important. One, whoever had created the document, I'm not sure if it was Brian Stanley or whoever, but in the end, this document is a collection, this one-page summary. I'm not a fan, haven't been a fan. But when you come in the middle of COVID, you're not changing a lot of things. So this is not the area where you go to change. So this document is man-made or individually made, and it was created, I like history, it was created by finance directors' requests from elected officials and school committee members. And it has taken on form based on questions and things that have come up. And we have been asked since I've come here, can you make it smaller? Can you make it shorter? Some people want stuff, don't want stuff. But there's a lack of sustainability with something like this when it's created in an Excel document with formulas. Because, one, corruption, which let's just say that happens. Your file gets corrupted. Now you've got to ensure all your formulas are correct instead of ensuring that your financial systems, which we get audited and reviewed on. So if you go back to series of workshops, you'll probably see I typically have never pulled the sheet out. I don't use the sheet. It's not helpful to me because it's not necessarily how the budget operates. It's how people want the budget to operate. So I'm going to ask where's my assistant? Lynn Guvin is going to go to the podium, Lynn. Thank you. Do you have a sheet? Do you need my sheet? Okay. So Lynn, because I always, as a teacher and a facilitator, sometimes it's better to hear other voices and have somebody else explain something because while I do it every single day, Lynn does it probably every single minute of every single day. So, and she's a Charlestown resident.
I am.
And she's a proud mom of Charahoe grads. So I'm going to give the floor to Assistant Director Lynn Guvin.
Okay. So the sheet that you were given today is a little bit different because what we did is we had the original 26 approved by the voters budget. And then we added another column that shows additions that we had to add to the 26 budget based on school committee votes to get an adjusted budget. It's substantial. So anyways, so what we're doing is comparing 27 to the adjusted 26 because we can go into why. We have a lot of things happening with staffing the contract. We have out of district tuitions. We have the playground that needed to be funded. There were additional costs for Hope Valley moving, and it's a constant with the school department. It's constantly fluid. It's not like this is it. It's and we're done because we have students coming in and out of district or going into special ed, and so it's a variety of things. So it isn't just one thing. So this one pager was altered a little bit to accommodate all the changes that we have done.
So just give me 1 second. So on the screen right now, that you're seeing here, it's basically added to the presentation. So when you see it tonight on YouTube, that you'll be able to see the screen so you can refer back to it. But this is really what, Lynn has just shared, that the one pager is not from our financial system. It is created by finance directors in the Charahoe Regional School District to accommodate elected officials and school committee members to better explain what I think we can all agree that the definition of insanity, right? We all know the definition of insanity. So we're going to try it different. So we felt as though it was really important for people to understand why I believe, and I've shared this with the chair and the budget subcommittee, this page should no longer exist. It is not a fundamental way, this is not how school budgets work. And this is where I think a lot of the confusion. And I'm going to let Lynn just finish this because then what we're going to show you, and I'll let Lynn start off on that next slide, which is going to be an explanation of, and we'll use an example of a town that doesn't exist in the member towns, but maybe very similar. Right. And what that would look like when you look at a school level budget and a district level budget when you look at your municipal budgets in a regional district. But if you look at the bottom, what Lynn said, over here, the Auditor General, when you're looking at a school budget, it's your audit is apples to apples. Mm-hmm. You can't take the FY26 budget and compare it to the FY27 budget because of what Lynn just said. So, because it's apples and oranges. And there's actually been a lot of conversation at the table with the members being confused. Like, oh, Mrs. Burkhardt, how did you get the assistant principal for Richmond? We didn't approve that. That's a staffing decision changed in 2019 around the school accountability law. That's a decision from the management side of the house. You don't approve a line by line. You approve an example budget of where we believe all the money is because the school hasn't started yet. So that's why in the Charahoe Act, you vote yes or no, and there's no money amount because you don't know it. It's the preliminary aid. We don't even get told that until June.
Yeah.
So I need you to keep that in mind while Lynn continues.
Okay. So you're going to do the next slide?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, Mike's got it.
So town budgets, the biggest expense in town budgets is the school district in almost every town. And so we came up with an example, which is pretty close to a lot of towns we looked at. And so we said, okay, a town budget the total town budget is $30 million. We found that school districts are around 70% of the total town budget. So in the example, it says out of the 30 million, 21 million is the school, and 9 would be the other town services. So when we have an increase in the school budget, and on the slide it says 8%, it's not 8% for the town budget. It's only 8% for the school district budget. So what you would do, assuming that your town school budget is 70% of your total town budget, you would take the percentage of the school percentage, multiplied by 70%. And in this example, it would be 5.76. So it's, yes, you have an increase in school budget, but it isn't an exact percentage of what your town budget would be. I hope that makes sense.
Questions for Lynn?
Like I said, I don't know if this is like your towns. I'm just saying in general, it seems to be around 70%.
So Lynn, so in the case of Richmond, so Richmond's town budget is about $8.2 million.
Okay.
And I think I mentioned this yesterday during our meeting, and forgive me if I'm being redundant, but so if our if our town budget is 8.2 million in Richmond, when I get my tax bill, it says on my tax bill what the percentage is that goes to the school, which is 80%, at least that's what it says on my tax bill.
Okay.
And then 20% to the town. So I'm just trying to.
I'm sorry. If you look at your town total budget, which would include the school budget, it's probably close to 30 million or 30, 35. I'm not quite sure exactly what Richmond was, but your total town budget would be around 30 million.
Right.
And yeah, 8%, and maybe 8 million was other town services. But your grand total would be 30.
Right. So yeah, so the town expenditures, if you will, so the whole,
Yes.
yes, not including the school budget. Right.
Correct.
And currently, as is, that also includes the state aid because that goes to the town. So it's each town's portion of the budget plus the state aid they receive that also then gets paid to the school district as part of the overall.
Yes.
Okay. Budget.
So if you go back to the omnibus meeting, actually, it was Town Manager Brian Rosso that gave a very, specific example around, I believe the question was about towns can't go over the 4%. So at the omnibus meeting, I thought Brian did an excellent job. Jess, you followed up, Member Purcell followed up regarding her clarification, which I thought were very helpful. And so I would definitely, if you have someone that's confused or doesn't understand, every member of the town council was at that meeting. So I thought it was a sign of sort of understanding across the table that we all understood necessarily that this was the case. But I think sometimes people don't want to ask questions. So when we were clarifying, because again, we live in this world every single day. So when you look at your tax bill, and I had said this to the chair, I know that the North Province has been level funded every year that I've been there. And the number of what they say, the amount can be the same, and the money doesn't go back into the pot. So when you all got the uniform chart of accounts, all that changed because districts across Rhode Island, let's just say, we were being naughty and weren't making sure the educational funding was going directly into the schools, which is illegal. So with the uniform chart of accounts, they now can track all the dollars. So what was important to understand is that if we have $1 million in staffing left over because we have custodian vacancies that we've had in the past, that money doesn't get put back into the pot of money for the Charter School District. It gets put into the fund balance. The fund balance comes back to the district via the town's allocation. So if you could envision it where you have the school budget, state aid, local budget, and then you've got three buckets: Richmond, Charlestown, Hopkinton. Any money that doesn't get spent goes back into each one of those buckets to be reverted back into education spending, so it lowers your town's comparison cost. So that's where, and those of you may remember last year, I know President Gary, when I had said it goes back to the town, he was kind of a little fast, and he was like, that's not true. And I said, it is true because it goes back to the town through the contribution, because it's illegal for me or a town to withhold our education funding to spend it for any other purpose. So then I've been asked, well, then why do the towns take the state aid? We're the only regional district that doesn't do that way. Oftentimes it's just because, it's like the pocketbook. My Nonna used to hold a pocketbook, and then where the money was, she would tell you. And if she wanted you to know where it was, she would told you. If she didn't want you to know, you had to know where the secret candy jar was to go get the money. But in the end, sometimes she may have to take some money out of the candy jar and then put it back in. That's not legal, which is why the Uniform Chart of Accounts was created to ensure that districts and towns weren't taking school money, paying off bills, and then reimbursing. And that's why, if the state aid came to us and they can't hold it, and there's been times where we had to have conversations while I've been here that you can't, reduce your funding to schools, and you can't, you have to do the maintenance of effort. It's not because we're trying to be stingy with our money, because it's illegal to take money dedicated to education to try to pay off town services. So we recognize no taxpayer wants their taxes to go up, me included. We get that. But we, for years, prior to even me being here, have been asked to reduce the budget every single year. And when you do that, parents begin to ask where your services and your priorities are. There are certain things that you cannot say no to, and certain things you can say yes to, and certain things that are all good ideas, but you can't do them all. An example of that is our fields. I had removed $1.6 million from this budget before you even saw it. And I'm not thrilled about that. But I knew if I gave it anything higher, there would have been a concern. Now, as time goes on, we have about 7 retirements. We possibly could get more, but those are numbers that I can't guarantee, and typically you can't force someone to do that. Now we can say, oh, well, what if we do incentives? And people have asked that. Well, yes, but you still have to buy out those contracts, and there's no guarantee that you're going to get somebody at a cheaper rate, especially if it's a math teacher, a science teacher, something at a different level. We've also been asked about the admin, and then I've given this information to the school committee. I'm happy to put it on our website after tonight, because typically what we did was we answered the questions requested by the members of this committee, and I gave you all an update on Friday. And then I know a few of you had some questions submitted today, and Mr. Zenian has those answers for you. So what's important to understand is that we want to make this as transparent and clean, as clear as possible. And I promise you there's no trickery here, because if there was trickery, I would have done it 6 years ago if I could figure out how to do it. But what I know is, as a teacher at heart, I go back to the classroom and I think about if people aren't understanding, then that's back on the facilitator and the instructor. That's on me. So what I want to do is, but I also need collaboration and understanding to be able to allow me to explain things. And I'm not going to say that I explain it exactly correctly, because if you were part of my class, I'd be spending a lot more time with you. We would be building relationships, and we would be working together. I think it's an example of myself in the chair, where we may not align on a lot of things, but we align on one thing, that we're here to support the Charahoe students, period. And we're legislated to do that as school committee members. School committee members are legislated to ensure the budget reflects the student services, not the taxpayer's bottom line. That's a town council job. So school committee members, and if you've been elected as a school committee member, I can say this because I am a school committee member, that's the charge that you take your oath for. When you go to the town clerk, you specifically talk about the oath of a school committee person, and that's about students first, not taxpayers. That doesn't mean we forget about taxpayers. We have a responsibility to be fiscally responsible and financially responsible, which I believe, have proven year after year in our audits. But I'm telling you, in all honesty, that this budget, any more further cuts to this budget, has risk. And this is my recommendation. Any further cuts, I'm now advising the committee, have risks. We can share the risks in public, if you have questions, but I want to advise you, it's going to be a reduction in staffing and services for students. You all have a job to do. You have constituencies. I recognize, elections. I'm not, blind to any of that. But my responsibility first and foremost is to advise the committee on how to best service students. And when I say all kids all the time, for me, it's not a motto. I'm going to every single student, and And I can tell you, there are people that think we can do things better, and I don't disagree with them. But I think we're doing the best we possibly can every day to improve better and better with the funding that we have. And I'm really proud of the budget. I understand, like, as fast as Hopkinton came down, Richmond went up. And right now, I'll be at the General Assembly tomorrow working with lobbyists to make sure that they know. I went to the Blue Ribbon Commission. I spoke on the funding formula. I provided information to David Cicilline from the Rhode Island Foundation, along with the researchers that did the work. And I put out the summary in the e-update that went out today to all families. You can get the Blue Ribbon Commission report along with my very small snippet of how it doesn't how Charahoe in just the transportation lens is impacted if we even consider changing that funding formula. That's the job you want me to do, because like I've said, the responsibility has to be a collaboration among the towns and the school committee. Lynn's mentioned that all of these factors. Can you go back 1 second, Mike, to the next slide? The first slide that we had with Lynn, the one-page summary. Thank you. So these are the factors, like transportation, we're going to fight every year. And since, Rep Kennedy has always been amazing at getting us our regional transportation, but it was not fully funded until Governor McKee came in, and all of the regional districts continued to write resolutions. And Rep Spears and Rep Carter have been amazing at ensuring not only do we get regional transportation, but the last 3 years we got more state aid than we ever have. So that's a credit. So we don't want, I'm not about wagging my finger. We need their support because they are fighting for us. So it's not that the General Assembly is bad. Everybody's well intended, but we're all fighting over the same pot of money. My job now is to go to the General Assembly to share not how to get more money, but how to use it wiser. Now, do I think that I'm a magician? No, but I do know that I'm a pretty smart, intelligent woman who has great leadership skills. Whether people believe it or not, that's what I strive for. So I'm always room for improvement. But my fight at the General Assembly is not about against the General Assembly. It's about making sure people understand how we're funding education. Because, like I've said to you, you're not funding 35 districts. You're funding 60. And that's why people are saying, well, where's all this money going? Because you've opened up the idea, we don't have vouchers here, but you've opened up opportunities for students, which is not bad. But again, we're creating apples and oranges and not understanding that there is no villain in the story. It's just that we have to, Rhode Island has the worst funding formula, and I can prove it. And when we get to more of that focus and focus on the areas like if we start at transportation and we start at high needs special ed, that is a good first step for any district. Then all kids will begin to win.
Are there more slides, Gina?
These are the only two that we felt were, so if there's, anyone have a question for Lynn before she takes this? But she'll be here to answer any questions. We promise to give her a microphone.
Okay. Laura?
Lynn, since you're up there, can you explain on your worksheet, on this worksheet, the funds transfer to capital, that credit for the 641,000, and then how that relates to the numbers that are listed above, how that relates to the budget?
So that was a transfer to the capital fund because we needed additional funds, and it was done in the original FY26 budget as well. It's just transferring from general fund to the capital fund.
Give me 1 second. Greg, to his insight, did this really well because we have the school committee, and I'll never forget, this was Bill Day, my first year. He and I, we won't say we always disagreed, but this was one where publicly we disagreed because he asked us to move it to zero. This is where, when you have Councilor Helen Sheehan from the past, now she's back as a community member, has said, oh, well, use your capital budget. You don't have one because you've not been funding it. You have been removing that funding every year in the capital budget because you were working on a plan. When, as we all know, we are still working on a plan 6 years later. So after we lost the bond in May 2024, I don't have any capital dollars, which means you can't go out and get any money. You can't do projects if you don't get state reimbursement. So the $600,000 was put in for last year because we needed to rebuild the capital fund that the school committee has been moving to zero because you've been asked by the towns to do so. So that money was put in last year. Mr. Zenian was, as a new finance director, was I thought, very astute in doing that. And Sharon Davis caught it right away last year, if you go, and we explained to Sharon, and she was like, "Oh, I understand." But that money is because we have to have a capital account in emergencies, and we're one snowstorm heavy away from a roof collapsing, and I'm not telling a lie that my nights are a little restless when I hear about the snow.
So the 641,000, that is essentially that comes from the operating budget. Is that correct?
It's basically coming from fund balance
Oh, fund balance.
to the capital fund balance.
You have to have, remember, the
So
state law
moving from
requires
one
us.
Fund balance to the other fund balance.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
The state law requires us to make sure that 3% of our operating budget is going into facilities. That's the state laws under the school building authority. So if you've got nothing to do and you want to go back to my old slides around the bond, for some historical perspective, you can see that those dollars were mentioned there. So the law, when the state invested in schools in 2018, when the state bond passed, they specifically said with the new construction, they were going to ensure that districts had a minimum of 3% allocated. Now, let's just say we have barely made it to that 3%. And, because we have not had a capital improvement plan up until recently for the main campus. And now, as you all know, we're working on, we'll be resetting our stage 1 so that in September we can do our stage 2. But that money is your capital account, because remember, in elementary schools, you have a total for this year to spend $500,000, and we're almost there. And the winter season isn't over.
Laura, did you have any other follow-ups?
No.
Not right now? Okay. Karen?
Just quickly, if we don't have a fund balance, we don't get state reimbursement.
No, if we don't use the state process, we don't get state reimbursement. So if let's say there are districts that say, well, I don't want to follow all that red tape. So if they want to pay a $600,000 project, then they pay dollar for dollar. My understanding from the school committee has always been, we want every dollar back that we can possibly get. So we have to follow all the rules.
The $641,000 was part of the fund balance transfer of $3.1 million last year. The $641,000 was to make sure you had enough money for your stage 1 and stage 2 elementary applications. If you did not put that $641,000 aside, you would not have been able to pay your architects for your stage 2.
Which is why Sharon Davis understood that when we explained it last year.
Thanks for that clarification. Polly?
Lynn, I had a question. Sure. On the new sheet you gave us at the bottom, the columns go 24, 25, 25, 26, 25, 26, and then 26, 27. Yeah, but it's,
Which column are you in?
So we have 24, 25,
yep,
right? Then you have 3
The
of
three.
20, 24. That's the original budget we
Okay.
had. And then we had an adjusted 25, 26.
okay, good. Thank you.
Okay?
I'm gonna write that right in.
Yep, you write that down.
All right, so the members of the school committee
Yeah, I
had a
can't
number
see
of
that.
questions for the administration, and then Gina compiled a
Adjusted.
memo for the members of the school committee. I think she sent it out last Friday. Gina, can you talk about the pre-K tuition? And you have that as a first topic on our memo, status and options for fiscal year 27. Maybe we can start there before we jump into everybody's questions.
Sure. So the pre-K tuition has been a conversation. We are the lowest tuition in the state. And I just did a new comparison, and we are still the lowest, which is great. We're the best deal in town, in any town. But the pre-K is not state reimbursed because we do not have a state pre-K. State pre-K comes with additional funding, and but you also have to have you can't supplant it. So you can't build a state pre-K unless you have pre-K. So we run the pre-K, which was required by law for our special education students that are ages 3, 4, and 5. And then what happens then is we have what we call typical peers. Typical peers are students who are model peers. That mean that they've met their benchmark at the age of 3, 4, and 5 for a screener that we use to be able to be a model for a student who has some needs, whether that be OT, occupational therapy, physical therapy, or early language environment speech. So with that being said, we have obviously the pre-K, which is Hope Valley Annex, still called Hope Valley Annex because that's the name of the school, not the name of the program. And then, for example, like we're getting prepared to just change it to just the Charahoe Regional Pre-K because that's really what it is. It doesn't matter where it lives; it's the pre-K program. Now, the whole pre-K program is not at Charlestown. We also have the CHIP program, which has no tuition. That was a decision made by school committee members. Again, a great program that when we look at screeners, that kids that don't meet the requirement for either an IEP or early services could get pre-K supports to help just give them a little bit of a boost, like a ramp up ready for K. And we call that the CHIP. And that's part of our education programming for our career and technical students who work directly. Their classroom is attached to the pre-K classroom, and they work with the students interchangeably before they head out into their student teaching practicum during the school year. With that being said, even if we raise it like $50, I think it's, is it $125?
It's currently for 3 days, 120, for 4 days, 160, and for 5 days, $200. That's a month. I thought it was a week when I first read it. If you did a 50% increase, you would go for 3 days for $180 a month, 4 days would be $240 a month, and 5 days would be $300 a month. This would increase your revenue by $28,200 based on your current enrollment.
Any input from the members on whether or not we want to consider this as increased fees? Jess and Laura.
I support it. The 50% increase, which was the recommended starting point, I think is a good increase to implement in the budget. I know that in previous discussions, before I was on the school committee, members were not in approval of raising the tuition, but I think it's reasonable.
Thanks, Jess. Laura?
Greg, do you know the last time that was updated? The rates?
Yes, the last I can find is 2016.
And so with that being said, if we increased it by 50%, where does that put us compared to other districts?
The bottom.
Still puts you low. I put in for 100% increase too, which would be for 3 days, $240 a month, 4 days would be $320 a month, and 5 days would be $400 a month. That's $100 a week for daycare, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Right.
And that would increase your revenue with current enrollment by $56,400.
Craig, did you have your hand raised? No? Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion relative, Holly?
Yeah, just one question. Did we consider doing a sliding scale, or is that too logistically?
No, so with something like this, you would look at free and reduced lunch would potentially give you a sliding scale, or individually, if someone had a hardship and they were to call the business office, we would work with them.
So yeah, but with the it's almost like when you think about your school bucks for your lunch cafeteria, where families would have we would move to all electronic, like we've done with our activity accounts with Career and Tech, and then they would be assigned, and then the money becomes directly as an ACH account, they would call it, because it ensures that the money is pulled directly every month, and then we could work with families around payment plans. But in the end, this is an area where we're losing money. You're not getting money. You're losing money running the programs.
So with that being said, oh, sorry, Laura, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to, with the 100% increase, do you know where that puts us with
Yes.
compared to the other districts?
She asked where it puts us compared to other districts.
Oh, sorry.
I would say it puts you in the little bit of
It's still
the
yeah.
middle to a higher range, but there's probably still 10 districts.
Oh, yeah, there are
that
districts
charge more.
that, you know,
Are
it's
higher
a couple
than that.
$1,000s a month.
To do the pre-K? Okay.
Yes. I have they only gave me a hard copy because let's just say, you know, everyone's not willing to, you know, always do it, but all of the state pre-Ks, it's easy to find, but I had to collate, so I can just share, you know, the highest, and again, some districts don't even allow you to pick 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. They say you're coming 5 days, you're paying for 5 days. If your kid doesn't show up, it's 5 days because we got to turn the lights on.
Right. It's just
So
like
we're
day-
very,
day-
very, very easygoing, which is fine. But again, there's only so much I can do with the pot of money that I'm given.
Jess?
I don't support the 100% increase. I would make a motion to implement the 50% increase as recommended by the administration. It also says here in the memo that this would be paired with a clear access safeguard, for example, hardship waivers or sliding scale consideration.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any discussion on this? So my thought on this is, if we went to 50% increase, it would be estimated revenue of 28,200. If we went to 100% increase, it would go to 56,400. So I would assume that if we went to a 75% increase, it would be somewhere in the middle of that, just from a mathematical perspective. I mean, it's not that I'm opposed to the 50% increase. I still think that it's a great deal with a 50% increase if you're saying that we're among the lowest in the state. So I would be in favor of doing something a little bit more than 50%. Karen?
I understand, I completely understand what you're saying. I think where we haven't raised this in 10 years, we should probably start a little bit at the 50%, looking forward that next year we'll probably have to increase it as well.
So a 75% would give you an increase of $42,300. I would recommend you start at 50 and then you do 70, you bump up every year over 3 years.
Okay. Any other, Polly?
Are you able to tell us how many people utilize the sliding scale? I want to get an idea of if there are a lot of in-need people in this community, single moms or single dads who really utilize this and can't really pinch out that extra $100 a month. Is it just a few people who are accessing the sliding scale, or the majority?
The numbers are smaller, so I wouldn't feel comfortable because we only have 4 classrooms.
Okay.
So it's not something that we could share. I can give you overall. I can't tell you who's on what scale.
No, like, is it a majority of the people who utilize it, or just a handful? Is it like,
Let me talk to Mr. Anderson, and then we can maybe
okay.
see what we can give you.
I just wanted to get an idea of how many people were in
understand.
need.
Absolutely. Yep.
Karen?
I'm thinking that the same people that are in need would continue and that they would stay on that sliding scale. So I'm thinking it wouldn't increase necessarily for them.
True, but if a good portion of those people are utilizing the sliding scale, that tells me that they're already struggling. If it's just a few people, then it will be easier to help them. If we charge a little more, we can help them a little more. And like back and forth
It changes
kind of.
every year because they're not the same people, right?
Sure,
It's only
sure,
two.
of course.
If you were to base it on your free and reduce, about 23% of your population in Charahoe qualifies for free and reduce. So that, I mean, if you round it up to 25, that means, 1 out of 4 preschool students.
And
would
we have about
qualify for
100
some kind of
students.
Right. So a majority of your students, based on your free and reduced lunch, would not qualify.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to increase the pre-K tuition by 50%. Seeing no other hands raised, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Polly's opposed?
I'm not opposed. I was just late on the
You're
arrival.
okay, so that looks like it's unanimous? Okay, great. All right, so moving forward, are there any other questions that we would like to pose to Gina or the administration? So, just keeping in mind time, we're now at 6:40, so we have about 50 minutes of discussion on this. And so I'm gonna go around, and if you have your hand raised, I'll put you in the queue here. And I would say ask your 2 or 3 most important questions that will maybe have, impacts on the budget. And then if we have a second round of questions, time permitting, we'll get to those. Karen?
So just quickly, I noticed that the oil spill monitoring is going up like $20,000.
So when we put everything in, I did not realize that there's a rebate. So there's a rebate on that. So I was doing it based on what their original bill is. There's approximately a $20,000 rebate. That's already been taken out and recalculated into the one pager you have tonight.
Okay, great, thank you. And then my second question is more from Councilor Reynolds. He asked at the omnibus meeting if the the transportation could be evened out over
So,
3 years.
yes, I negotiated, the contract you'll be getting the contract for your approval in March, but I was on the phone with Ocean State today. They were willing to reduce to 8% in year one, 7.8% in year two, and 7.8% in year three. And that will have, what I did was wherever you see in this budget, 11%, I knocked it down to 8%. And that will give you, additional savings of, I was gonna say off the top of my head, but I don't wanna. So, okay, so that's gonna save you. What? 116. So approximately $116,000 in year one of your contract, and that money has also already been deducted on your one pager. So if you look at the one pager where you see in parentheses $162,458, that includes the oil spill and the transportation.
Great. Thank you. Karen, any other questions?
I'll let others.
Okay, who's next? Laura, I know you had a bunch of questions yesterday during our pre-meeting, so.
Yeah, Greg, just to follow up on those specific questions, were
Yes.
you able to circle back on that?
Yes, which one do you want to start with?
Starting with the benefit reduction.
Yep,
So just so that everybody's aware, during our meeting yesterday,
Laura and I had some
They
questions
asked
about the
me about
budget.
their question.
and Greg, I can't remember what
yeah,
page.
so everyone can follow along. If you go to page 2 of the 10 pager, and if you look at 612, you see salary reduction. And then your FY 26, you see $190,000. And then in FY 27, you don't see anything. So for the FY 26 adjusted, there were 2 teachers that we had budgeted for that we did not fill. And when we budget somewhere in the middle. So that 190,000 represents 2 teachers at $95,000 each. And then if you go to page 3, line 4886.
You're in section 2, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The 10 pager.
You're online, section 2.
That 133,000 is, would have been the, benefit package to go with that. And then I did look a little bit deeper. We believe that, that 133,000, there might have been a typo with it because it has healthcare at 88,000 and healthcare for 2 family members should be around 44,000.
Okay.
But that
so-
does not help your FY 27 because that's not, we did not, so we don't know if we're gonna have people, that are not hired at this point.
But this is based on what we know at the moment.
So you, right now, so when you did your FY 26 original budget and you passed it, you didn't know those 2 positions weren't gonna be filled.
Okay.
So then it says, it's in parentheses because it's money that, is not being used.
So if you, looking at the previous fiscal years as well, the previous budgeted years, those numbers, were you able to figure out where because in 25, I believe it was, it was a much higher amount for the benefit reduction, which wouldn't have reflected the salary reduction. I think it was like 900,000 and then the salary reduction was substantially less than that. So that benefit reduction you're saying that's healthcare that's the healthcare package for,
So that's all, it's your healthcare, it's your dental, it's your retirement, it's your FICA,
It's your fringe.
it's everything.
okay. And so again, why would we have budget, like why would that number have been fluctuating so much, like in the previous years where it was,
Well,
know,
one year,
400,000 and
when
then
you're looking at past
900,000.
budgets, you have one year where you have 9 custodians that were never filled. So 9 custodian positions at $40,000, 9 times 40 is 540,000, add another 200,000 for their benefits, you're at $740,000.
Yeah, and then you have teachers who certified staff or other staff that go on medical, and then there's substitutes or day-to-day. So, this is a great example of like why the audit is where, if you want to look at salary line to line, you want to go to your audit. This is just like how, again, it's your actual, it's your adjusted, because when you vote on preliminary numbers, and, you know, an example, you know, that Lynn gave again was that, there were things for like Hope Valley, we said it was about $865,000 and change maybe for savings, but then we negotiated with the town and we offered to do more, they offered, we collaborated, and then there was a little bit more cost, making sure things were done, and then we filled the oil to make sure that they had the heat and things like that. We had to update all the fire extinguishers per the law. And we said, you know, we weren't gonna charge them because that's part of our responsibility before we turned it over. But overall, this is not, if you want to compare year to year, you don't want to use, this is why this budget package, this is where the budget subcommittee, and I think, and the school committee, this is a exercise in what school committee members wanted to look at, but you're not looking at, when we say adjusted, it's all the adjustments you make. So you see all the transfers. So if you go to about all the transfers that we make, typically it's areas where we've underfunded it and we needed it, or surprises happened. An education budget is very, what we call volatile, inflexible, you've heard me say, because you, like right now, I have another student that moved in, 2 students, you know, one that has significant disabilities, but not academic disabilities. So there are things that we are responsible to do by the law. So when I have to get a salary, for example, I may have to hire an additional nurse, I may have to hire an additional support staff because an IEP has a specific need or request. We also have transportation. We had to, again, we have got some areas where, you know, new families prop up and there's never been a bus over there and the big buses can't get in. And that small bus with a monitor costs much more money than a big bus. So those, when you look at salaries though, every time a teacher goes on maternity leave, this number changes. Every time a teacher moves from one building to the other, a great example is our district special educators. Our special education teachers are district-wide. They're not assigned by school. They live in a school, but they're based on students' needs and services. As those students may leave or come in or change their IEP, they may met their goal, those services change, therefore the staff can change. So if I take a staff member and we have to reassign to a different school, that number changes this budget. And they're where they are because the UCOA follows them. So regardless of where they go. This is why if we want to look, you know, year to year, I would say let's go to the audits. Unless there's a specific question that you think would be helpful in the FY27 to make sure that we clarify that would be great, because I want to make sure that.
Another question I have is the Hope Valley. That was another one I had asked about. I'd emailed you.
Which,
The Hope Valley, so if you look at, in the 49-page budget, there's line items that are showing salaries, and there's proposed budgets for the Hope Valley art teachers. No, it's not pre-K. You do have items for pre-K as well as special education, it looks like. Those are under the 23106 UCOA code and then 9106, which is the annex.
what page are you on?
It is row 86, which is page 2 of 49.
So the
They're
86
assigned
and
to pre-K.
87,
That's the health PE teacher, because they do both. They work at Charlestown and they are assigned to pre-K, so they have to be showing up in both.
So, but why is it assigned to Hope Valley though? I guess.
So the Hope Valley, that's the name of the school. Hope Valley Annex is our pre-K.
Oh, annex.
Well, no, this isn't the annex, though. The annex is under the 9106, correct? Lynn, is that correct? The 09106? This is under the 03106.
It's the PE health teachers.
yeah, I see it for music too.
Do you see what I'm referring to?
Right. So, we'll run that whole report and see if that's pulling up a salary we no longer need.
Well, no, because it's the art and music. It looks like the unified arts just have, because they go from school to school. It just, the number's not going to change your salary. I think is the big point, because you still have to pay for the teacher.
So I'm trying to understand this because I think Laura's point is that there are a number of different line items here for Hope Valley. Salary music teacher on that page, row 73. Salary PD music teacher, Hope Valley, line 74. So,
Right, so like, when I have my budget, I can go into the person.
okay, and we're not, again, we're not trying to, call out specific individuals, but, you never know. It may have been something that may have been overlooked, so, so I mean.
No, yeah, absolutely. The only thing, and I just, yes, thank you,
Yeah, of
Lynn. Go
course.
ahead. Because when you look, it's not the whole salary too. You've got to look at the person. That's how I can tell which person it is.
Okay. Yeah, so there's
But yep,
line item number 56, line item number 57, salary art teacher, Hope Valley, salary PD teacher, Hope
I
Valley.
understand what you're saying.
Go ahead.
Part of my job is to convert what we have in our Excel worksheets to our financial system. And the teachers that were involved, that are music, art, and PE, go to a variety of schools. And so when we found that, it may not have been changed in your book,
what is it?
but like they've been assigned to where they're actually going to be going. Either they're going, like I have here, the art teacher was going to go to Ashaway, being coded as Ashaway instead of Hope Valley. It's still the same person, still the same teacher, just the UCOA code was wrong. So it's in there, but when we actually put it into our financial system, it'll be coded to the proper location that this
Right.
teacher.
This is why we don't use Excel spreadsheets, because they don't translate from the financial system, which is why next year, my recommendation is that we use the financial system, because this is where now Lynn is literally doing two different jobs. She's remaking all of this for specific people, and this, I think, is more confusing. I mean, go to any other districts, you're not gonna see this, because what we're doing is we're taking out information from our financial system to try to make it in an Excel document, because everybody wants to play with our Excel documents in the towns.
Right.
But I don't have the stat to keep doing this, because you can see, I'm more worried about the correct financial system. But in the end, I know, because I know the budget and the names, and I know where they are, that the salary isn't gonna change, it's not gonna change the bottom line.
Okay,
Right, it's just the UCOA was wrong. The location was wrong.
okay. Thank you, Lynn.
And then also keep in mind, sometimes you'll see numbers, like you'll see that in there, but there'll be no numbers. So like 73 and 74, because in past years, there was a Hope Valley music teacher, now it's just lines. We're not budgeting for it.
Right.
Right, I just wanted to ask the question so that it was clear to the public that, that there's not people in Hope Valley that after we close the school, that's not something that's being allocated. So I think that, it would be helpful if it was, if those type of things, that way it doesn't, it's not confusing.
Absolutely. This is why I'm suggesting we no longer do this. This is not a helpful, this is I'll say an exercise in futility sometimes, because you're double making your budget.
Okay. Laura, did you have
Yeah,
one more follow-up?
my other question was about the FICA calculations. How do you guys, when you come up with those figures, how do you do those? Is that based off of your entire salary, the 7.65%, based on all the salaries put together? Or is it just based off whatever's been listed under the previous
It's
year?
when you wanna, it's the federal, we have to use the federal and state law, but regularly.
We break it
Right.
down by each person in each code. So if an employee is hired, then their social security is paid separate, their
Retirement.
FICA, their retirement, it's all,
Pension.
Right, no, I understand that. I mean, for the budgeting part of it. So for the budgeting part,
we
if-
budget the number the federal government gives us.
Requires.
And if, or the state gives us, and if they do not give us a number, which they don't always by now, we budget on last year's number,
Right.
And then you get that surprise when you budget 2.1, and then they tell you, oh, by the way, it's 2.3.
Right, 2 years ago, the General Assembly changed the pension number and that we had to eat that. So that everyone said, oh, you got an extra $300,000. No, we didn't. It went right back into the pensions because they gave that surprise in June.
Okay, the reason I was asking that is because in the last, if you look at the last, like 3 or 4 years, the budgeted amount, and then the actual amounts, it's usually about a $200,000 delta there. So I was wondering how that got calculated.
Right,
Or
but
ends.
if a top step teacher leaves and you replace with a third step, you already have that budgeted, and vice versa. So you
Okay.
never know which way it's gonna swing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Karen?
On the one pager, I'm sorry,
One pager.
at the bottom.
Yep.
From the old one pager to the new one pager, Richmond went down 228,458, but our percentage went up to 8.01. Why?
No, so hold on, can you just clarify, Karen, you're looking at the original one pager,
The one from 121,
went from 121,
so it's.
okay, 120,
And then today.
I have 120, so I
I'm
apologize.
just- I mean, 121, it was 7.91%.
Yep.
And now it's 8.01%. The state aid
State aid,
stayed the same.
no, it didn't. Look at it, well, mine has 17,644,141,
That's contribution after state aid.
and then 17,558,320.
So that's a loss of $228,458. I teach history, so I will say that I cringe at math. I'm just curious as to why.
So if you look at the top,
I'm looking.
excuse me, because this one pager has caused so many
You're right, I'm sorry.
Fluctuations.
fluctuations, we had, everyone was looking at the budget that was approved by school committee for FY '26. And then they were comparing it to FY '27, and they were saying, we don't understand, Hope Valley closed, there was about $850,000 in savings, where did that money go? So if you look at the new one pager, we showed you where that money went. And that $706,000, when you build it back in, it comes to 2.78%.
So if you go back to what Lynn said, the numbers changed because we reset the budget so that it was clear about the adjusted and what that meant. So for example, like we had the budget vote, the yes and the no. You didn't vote on a number. You voted on a percentage based on preliminary understanding of what the budget was going to be. But you have a legal responsibility to service students. So then the school committee takes upon itself the actions, and we make transfers as requested. An example would be the Richmond Playground.
Correct.
An example would be at the September where you allocate money. We just got a phone call right before this meeting because there could be a litigation that we need to be able to budget for. So that doesn't stop. That's why once you get this book, the book becomes obsolete.
Correct.
The book is only as good as the minute I print it. It's kind of like the new car you buy. You drive it off the lot and it's old. It's already old because now the wheel keeps spinning. So, which is why what I've explained, this budget book had a purpose that no longer exists. And I don't necessarily know if it was ever did you justice, because I think it shared information with some people could understand, but others took it as, oh, you want, 8% more, 5% more. And in essence, the state aid, we have no control over the state aid. The towns can't tell what it's going to be because the General Assembly has the power to adjust the funding formula. This year, they adjusted that success factor, and it kicked Richmond up and brought Hopkinton back down. A few years ago, it did the exact opposite. So anytime they make those changes, the budget book is only as good as when it's printed, which is why the comparison from year to year, you want to look at the audit. But with here, what we tried to show is that when we say adjusted, we're saying every time you make a school committee transaction or vote, we then have to adjust your budget to show the funding. Every time the state, for example, I'm waiting for the DCYF tuition to come its way. It usually rears its ugly head in January, February, which we went, I mean, my first year here, it was about 55,000, and last time we checked, it was 92, but I'm sure I'm gonna get a bill in a week or two that's gonna tell me it's probably 110. And then we'll come back with you during a budget workshop and tell you we have to allocate those fundings. Foster care, received a email from a representative who is interested in foster care. You all, as a school committee member, get your report, but there are certain responsibilities that come with that law. Then there's the SRO law, which means that there's mandated reporting now with SROs. SROs are not school employees, yet they want the school to now be able to manage that work. And we've said to the Attorney General office, they're not our employees. So, for example, the Charlestown gives us the SRO at the middle school without fee, without charge. So that's a free service to the district. Richmond, we pay approximately, partial of the salary of the SRO, which is about 90,000 and change. That MOA will come in front of you. Again, it's an annual review. Those are the areas where those are employees, again, where Richmond can't afford to be able to do what Charleston can do based on the operating budget, but it's greatly appreciated. So I think that's why when we see these towns, I think it's a misrepresentation of even what the towns provide, because it doesn't necessarily show all that Charlestown provides us, or even the services with the collaboration around our EMAs. The EMA directors across this, Richmond, most importantly, is my biggest EMA director. In an emergency, it's the EMA director that calls the shots, not your chief of police. So right now, you have a part-time EMA director, and they don't even mention the schools and the job description at the town. That's a problem. Because in an emergency for your kids, the EMA director takes the lead of incident command. Now, why is that important? Because I'm not saying that I want people to raise the budget, but what I'm saying is there's dollars that can get federally accessed to support EMA directors through FEMA that the towns haven't accessed. So I get we all want to come to the schools and figure out how to cut our budget, but I'm telling you, your budget is lean. And we keep cleaning it up. I'm still doing that work. I always look at staffing. I'm reviewing every single staffing assignment everywhere to make sure that we get the best return on our investment. And my responsibility to you is to improve that every year without infringing on student needs. I know next Tuesday, you'll be doing a practice around some non-renewals based on the law, the non-tenure law and things like that. And those are the opportunities based on retirements that we may have some savings. That's why it's a fluctuating budget. And what we give you is the best that we know at the time it's printed. My suggestion is there's information that is helpful, like enrollment, but that's projected. But I would tell you that your sections, your section one, your one pager should be from your financial system, not this. Your 2 and 3 is unnecessary unless you do, like I said, the 3 is even that. I would say if you wanted an overall, you would go with 2, because that gives you the big picture. But again, if you want it exact, then we should be using audit numbers. Okay. Not, how much the school committee moved, didn't move, because I'm not sure what purpose that serves other than saying, that's why I think people asked us for the transfers. And we very much put that out there to the public, and you can see most of our transfers are due to maintenance or when we have student services needs that we have to bring in.
Thanks, Gina, for giving us that feedback. So, as a Richmond representative, I appreciate your presentation about the slide that you put up there about the factors that contribute to the moving targets, if you will. So transportation, special ed, the 5 buckets that you had. I appreciate that this one pager is really sometimes confusing to the non-finance person like myself. However, I need to understand as a school committee member what the impact is going to be, because traditionally we've always looked at the bottom line percentage increases. So it's hard for me to sort of reconcile that we're sort of changing the narrative in the middle. And I'm not trying to be difficult, but what I'm trying to understand is if the overall budget increase is 2.7% for an overall budget increase.
Spending increase.
Spending increase. How does that translate to Charlestown, Hopkinton, and Richmond? So that when our constituents talk to us about what the fiscal impact is going to be, we can very clearly explain to them what the fiscal impact is going to be. So that's my first question. And then my second question is, because last year we went back and forth a number of times on different line items, and Gina, you were very mindful in telling us, you know, there are staff that watch the meetings, and then when we, you know, talk about different line items that impact a person or a program, that's not helpful, and people get nervous about that. So I'm trying to be more respectful and mindful of that this year. So with that being said, would it make sense for us to take a look at the budget as a bigger picture and look at the non-salary and the non-benefit lines? Anything that represents a 4% increase, that's non-salary and non-benefits. When we come back next Tuesday, is it possible if we can take a look at those line items that have a 4% increase by reducing those line items by 0.5%? What fiscal impact would that give you if those line items were potentially reduced by 0.5%? I don't expect you to answer that question now, but I do need feedback from you about how that could, because you know, I think all of us around the table want Charahoe to stay in the top quadrant of success. With that being said, when I look at fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 27, we're looking, you know, at, what is it, 6 million?
6.1.
A $6.1 million increase. So I want to be mindful of being the best we could be, being a fiscally responsible district, a high-level district. But if we need to look at something,
Can you say that number one more time?
Yeah.
0.5%.
No.
No,
just
that, I
explain.
think you're using state aid and local expenditures
Okay.
together. So that's where I would advise that we not do that, because the state aid, you have no control over state aid.
Right.
So state aid is based on your enrollment, which I have explained at the omnibus, is because your funding formula is based on enrollment, not student need.
Okay.
It's the actuals, you're looking at the actuals from 25, which is the
Oh, the
64,
act-
and
okay.
then versus that.
Okay, so the
But our
actual,
spending increase with, because so I said that the New England inflation is 3.2 to 3%. Nationally, it's about 2.6, 2.7. But I wish I was in that part of the state. We're not, we're in New England. So we are at 3.3, and our spending increase is 2.76. The reason why we said the spending increase is because the budget has, I mean, we can go through and look at the 4% increases, but I know in my head the increases are the utilities of inflation. It's the services, things cost more. We didn't ask for anything new.
right.
I've already removed the Rhode Island Students Assistance Counseling Program, and I will say that because it's a vendor and it doesn't impact my staff, but it impacts my kids, our kids. It impacts all students on the main campus. We have a robust set of services that we've been lucky to get through Project Aware, through the grants that Dr. Kamala has led, along with Dr. Karakosi and myself, and our mental health team and our health and wellness work. We've done a lot of work with grants. The only way to get this budget down is staff and programs. And the reason why I say don't, what I don't recommend is you say, I don't think, you know, X staff is important because my kid didn't like that staff,
And
whatever.
I did not do that.
No,
tonight.
I know you didn't. But what's more helpful is saying, okay, I've talked to the Richmond Town Council, you know, is it possible to bring the fund balance to 2%? That's a school committee decision. That's up to you guys. So I have it at 2.25 because I told you that the auditor already told us that it's a risk. The school committee has to determine if you want that risk. I've given you so now this is where I say, if you come and knocking, it's not my door, because I'm telling you, right now, we're already in major risk. One roof or one heavy snowstorm away from a facility where we might have to be moving into modulars, because I got the Charlestown roof going, and I've got the Ashway roof next up. And as fast as I get the main campus building committee done, I'm sure I'm gonna need, because remember, we only did half of what the original 5-year plan was. So what I need is some guardrails. Am I looking at sports? Am I looking at extracurricular activities? Am I raising the class sizes have already been raised in all the elementary schools. I've already made those cuts prior to coming to you.
I didn't say anything about class
No,
sizes.
what I'm saying is with staffing, so if I raise class sizes, reduction of staff, I need to understand what my guardrails are so I can advise you appropriately.
I am just trying to come at this in a different way this year, because last year it was a lot of back and forth, and I think it contributed to a lot of confusion, maybe hard feelings,
So-
mistrust, and I think we've come a long way from last year at this time. A lot of us around the table. So I am just trying to be mindful of what constituents from Richmond, and I know that we're a regional district, but I am a Richmond representative. So I have to represent constituents in Richmond. I have to represent everyone, but I get more emails from Richmond, residents. So I am trying to
Parents,
this-
we're responsible for the parents.
Okay,
So
I
Louise,
understand, but I think that you can understand where I'm coming from too.
If
That
you-
I'm trying to come at this in a more creative way, instead of going line item by line item, this and that.
so Louise, just
Yes.
so if you were to look at the 10-pager, which is basically the 49-pager, just with the highlighted, the bold.
Yep.
That becomes your 10-pager.
Yes,
123 out of your 384 lines have a 5% or more increase.
Okay.
So you're looking, so based on what you just said, I bumped it up, you said 4%.
Right.
At 5%, you're looking at 32% of those lines at
okay,
your next meeting.
32% of the lines.
Right, and I mean, I would ask that the committee vote on if that's what we want, because that's an exercise that is not necessarily strategic, because it doesn't necessarily look at services as a whole, it looks at a dollar amount. So I think what that's not, I think as my recommendation would be to share with us a dollar amount and some guardrails, like, we don't want, athletics, middle school, yes, no, don't look at it, look at it. Extracurriculars, middle school, high school, yes, no, look at it, don't look at it. Teacher assistants, we only want this many, like, already, we have more teacher assistants than most districts. But I don't think many families, this is the give and a take. I would not recommend that we go in and take 4% on every
I
line.
didn't say 4%, I said a 0.5%.
Oh, so 0.5%. I'm sorry.
0.5%.
0.5%.
Which I think is a reasonable request, a 0.5%.
Well, I would just suggest that we vote on, because that's an exercise that we can do. It's just, if, I need to understand, look, that's not necessarily gonna give you a realistic picture, because I can't necessarily cut something a 0.5% because it may be a service. Like a contract, a vendor, the transportation contract, but Chartwell, it's like, I can't not pay a contract. I can't not fuel or give the transportation a bus. Like, I have to know, we want to put depot stops in. I have to understand a little bit more than the 0.5%. I need to know what the guardrails are.
I don't have any guardrails. I'm just trying to start at a high level place, because
The
when
supplies,
we-
I did no furniture, supplies are a minimum.
yeah, because again, last year when we looked at, different line items, there was a lot of pushback. So what I'm saying is I understand that there's always going to be pushback, because we want to fund the district in the most responsible way to make sure that we are a high performing district. But if, when you look at salaries and benefits, that's off the table. So that's why I'm just saying,
Well, no, you're in negotiations with the ESP.
okay, well, that's my recommendation, that's my thought. I'm one person out of the 9 people that are here tonight. Jess?
Okay, so a couple things to start. I don't know if I agree with the fact that there was pushback to line items, but I don't think it was productive. I think that what I heard was answers to questions about line items, not necessarily pushback. And then just to address your point about how to find out the increase to Richmond, that's something that I brought up with omnibus and that I've really been trying to do and understand and make known to folks, but it is difficult when state aid is not final and also the town budget is not final yet. But what I did do was take the amount of the town budget, which with state aid and our town last year was 8.766 million. And then you have to take the increase from this year and use it with that number to get the percentage increase. And what I was getting in those calculations were 3% and below, based on, or that would be it was 4%. I can't remember. And what I have written down, it was like 2.8 to 3.3, I think. So it isn't the 8%, that's the increase to the district. So then, as far as my two most important questions, I sent Greg and Gina a long list of line items. You know, I didn't try to be obnoxious, but I think by the time I got to the end of the email, I thought that you would probably think I was ridiculous. But I think as far as two most important things, I would like to know what the amount is to go from 2.25 to 2% of the fund balance. We've done that every year for the last
We didn't
several
do it
years.
last year.
We didn't do it last year, okay.
Oh, no, I don't think we did. Oh, I think there's a couple of years we haven't, but the 2 point, so like, for the chair's point, what I'm not saying is, it's line item, what I hear you saying is like, let's say there's 32 lines, 0.5%, like that dollar amount is probably what you're looking at.
Yes.
As opposed to saying to me. So what I hear, just to clarify, I want to make sure that we're gonna look at, let's say, 32 lines at 0.5%, and that's the dollar amount we're looking at. Versus take it out of that. I think that's, to me, what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's more productive than
So
going line
then,
item
and I
by line
agree
item.
because, and thank you for saying that, because I don't ever mean to push back. I'm just trying to provide the information so you can make informed decisions. So with Jess, I think we have the numbers. Greg there's a few questions that came up that we are gonna, I apologize, I had a lot going on today, so I could not put it in an update, but we will provide it to the committee so that you have it for Tuesday, all of the questions that were asked today.
Thank you.
So Jess, I was able to answer the ones for the 10 pager. I didn't get to the 49 pager yet. I'll do that tomorrow. But if you were to reduce the amount of your fund balance from 2.25% to 2%, it would add an additional $163,522 to your reductions. It would leave you with a 2% fund balance. It would move Charlestown to 5.01%. It would move Richmond to 7.78%, and it would move Hopkinton to 2.15% based on the one pager, the right-hand lower corner.
Okay, thank you. Jess, did you have any follow-ups?
Not a follow-up, but my other question was about, it just came up, the TAs. I did see in the staffing that there's a reduction of 5.5 TAs.
They're vacant right now.
They're vacant right now. Okay.
Well, because they're being filled by subs.
Okay, so that seems like a lot. You know, it seems like they've increased over they've stayed the same, and now there's a big
We've got more certified teachers.
decrease. And then I also, related to that, I think the certified behavior coach that we've talked about, I don't know where to find that in this budget, if that's included in this budget. I know that was
And
something.
I actually, we did that this year, the BCBA, the Board Certified Behavior Analyst, I had to cut the one that I added to this budget before it came to you. But we did a change of contract and services and we turned the contract and a resignation into the BCBA this year. And actually, there's interviews Friday.
Okay. Do
Laura?
you anticipate, I'm sorry, I'm just worried about the 5.5 TAs. Are you concerned about that? Do you think that,
No, because we're reviewing the entire, we're modeling it after that at the highest, at that level. If you go back into the research, what you want to do is you look at your return on investment. More importantly, you look at your student services. So you match time and effort to make sure that your students are being seen. So it's not a smattering. There's no rhyme or reason for a teacher assistant unless it's about student services. So when you assign a teacher assistant, what we're doing with the admins and the teams is we're resetting the student needs to make sure we're prioritizing the needs of the students and that there's a strategic plan to ensure we know exactly how many. Based on that review, to date, we know we need 5 less.
okay, thank you.
Thanks. Laura?
So Greg, is there any way that we can, with the 706,000, that was additional,
Yes.
you don't have to do that tonight, but if we could just have an overview of what those additional items were.
I can
And
do it right now.
Oh, okay, great, go ahead.
$431,832
Slower.
were salaries.
And is that from the NEA teacher negotiations, or is that,
Yes, it is.
okay, and what is that, so that reflects the two, what was the increase for that?
It was, in FY '27, it was a 3.0.
3%?
Correct.
Okay,
So the next line is at $114,427. That's your benefit package on that.
okay,
Your next line is $30,000, which is your relay, which was, that's how we get reimbursed from Medicare. And last year about this time, I told you that we have not budgeted for that. And, this committee chose not to include it. So we still have to pay it. The next one is $27,200, which was your moving cost for Hope Valley Elementary School to close it. The next one is $8,500 for your transportation study that you approved. And the last one is $95,000 for the Richmond Playground that this committee approved. For a grand total of $706,959,000 in spending that we did not budget for.
okay.
Thank you.
So that equates to the amounts that, the adjusted amount that's on the revised one pager that you've provided today, correct?
One thing, Laura, that there, 431,000 also includes the two teachers
language
that were put back in
Okay,
Last year.
last year. So your raises to put those two teachers back in with benefits was $173,000.
okay. And so is there a way that we could get a similar type of, report that would be able to show, because I think what I'm having the most trouble kind of reconciling with is just the part with the year-to-date, the year-end amounts for 2025, and then getting from that step to where we are, what we're budgeting for 2027. I know that there's certain things that you have to incorporate, like the teacher negotiations and those increases, and that needs to be incorporated into the 2027 budget. And then there's other factors like the transportation, the special education. I know Gina had mentioned that before. Is there any way that we could get kind of just a general overview of probably the top 10 items that would be contributing to, that could help, us understand that jump of going from, your actuals in 2025, which would be at the close of 6/30, to what is being projected for the 2027. Does that make sense, what I'm asking, Greg?
I just want to make sure I understand too, because when we did the presentation for the budget, we went over, do you mind going back to the slides at the beginning? We went over where the increases are based on the overall, it's the slide that says budget impacts. Okay, so thank you. So that right there. So this is where these unavoidable increases, like we said, what we've asked for, we didn't ask for anything new. The increases are coming in because we were asked 2 years ago to no longer do the 4-year replacement, to do Chromebook replacement. So now it's at a 6-year and they need to be replaced. There's no savings for textbooks because it costs more. If we want textbooks, then we need to put more money in the budget, because Chromebooks, when Superintendent Ritchie went to 1-to-1, it was to lower your costs. And it actually will increase your costs if we want to do that. So that we can do, but I don't feel like this committee is asking me to add to the budget. The contractual obligations, we have the 3% salary increase for staff, but what I've explained is, while it's great that we're improving our programs, there's more parents that want to come in attendance, and the towns have raised their rates for police and fire, and at minimum, I have to cover 4 hours at minimum, even if I have an event for 1 hour.
Right.
I have a question.
No, I recall those. I recall these increases that you were referring to. What I was asking was actually just for an estimated figure on each of those items, because these are general and they're very helpful.
Oh, I can do that in a table, because Kathy and I
That's
have
what I
that
was
table that we
asking.
created by UCOA code, but it's not gonna, what we can't do is redo, like this page,
No, not the one pager, don't.
we will provide, we'll send it out, because Kathy and I worked on a in this, like the waste management law. Although, if you're interested, Esri Acton will be at Charlestown Town Council on Monday, presenting her suggestions for decreasing waste management for Charahoe, because it was a $12,000, almost $13,000 increase for us because the federal government removed the grant. So she's gonna be doing her civic duty on Monday, if anybody wants to go to the Charlestown Town Council. The other issue is the funding shifts in engagement. We've lost money in our Perkins grants and our federal dollars because the CTE numbers have gone more. The Met and the Davies have seen a huge increase in 2 million to 1.3 million, where we're seeing less. So now all of our CTE assessments, that was probably the biggest lift for us, was moving all of our CTE, getting students to their clinicals. Transportation is no joke with the 128 square miles. So most of our money fell into the funding shifts and engagement, the federal Perkins, and the needs to be able to get the CTE assessments were all placed in our budget because they used to be in Perkins. But we'll give you the code by the amounts.
Right, thank you.
Linda, you had your hand raised.
Trying to help Laura clarify, because I thought that would be interesting too, is that, take the largest of the 5 or 6 buckets and just kind of generally say, okay, teacher salary and benefits is X amount of dollars. Is that what you're thinking, Laura?
Right,
Yeah. And transportation, X amount of dollars. Special education, X amount of dollars. So like those are the buckets. And so, I mean, there's probably not that many of them. And, those are the probably top. I don't.
Yeah, the buckets,
Yeah, so-
we were gonna actually,
Yeah.
we dabbled with putting the code right next to the items here. But then sometimes, while some finance people like the numbers, others don't. So, but what I can do, I would take the same slide, and then with the table, you'll have the exact numbers, and then we can put it on so it's almost like a key.
So we can do that. Well, I've been told to do that, so I will do that. But, I still think, what I'm not sure people are understanding is that when you took 2.25% of your fund balance last year, it was $3.1 million. You are now taking 2.25% of your fund balance, and it's $2.1 million. So there's $1 million you don't have. Then you have $200,000 in less revenue. That's $1.2 million. Your spending went up 1.9 million.
Yeah,
So-
he was explaining that to me last meeting.
So,
He was explaining-
you can keep cutting and cutting and cutting, and you can, but what you're going to, at some point, you're going to have to realize is you have less money to play with.
Yeah, I think
So
the fund balance is,
we can produce all these charts, but what these charts are gonna show you is that you're paying for things because you have no choice, and then you have less money, but you have increases. And I think, until people really start to understand that once you get past the spending, your $2 million less from last year is really hurting this budget. Because if you put that 1.2 million in, if you had another 200,000 in revenue and another million in fund balance, everyone would be in a place where we wouldn't probably be talking right now.
well, I mean, and you just said if we had another $200,000 in revenue, and I respect my colleagues around the table when we talked about the pre-K, and I understand that we have to do this gradually, but, if we could generate another 25,000, 50,000, so I respect the vote, and we'll move on from it, but I think we're at 7:29, and I think that, at this point, we appreciate the feedback from the committee. Thank you for being open to, giving us some, more in-depth insight into all of the factors that contribute to a moving target for the bottom line budget. So, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting, please.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, and we have a second by Diane. All in favor? Aye, thank you. School committee members? Thank you. Okay, we're going to convene our special meeting for Tuesday, February 3rd of the Charahoe Regional School District. I am going to, per the agenda, stand again for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a moment of silence. Thank you. So we have 2 items on the agenda, although I think there was really only supposed to be 1 item, but we can get to that when we get to that agenda item. So discussion and vote to review and amend the Charahoe School Committee Rules of Conduct. This was an agenda item that was brought forward by member Diane Teft. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Diane. Diane,
Thank
please
you.
proceed. Yes, you're welcome.
Good evening, fellow committee members,
Excuse me,
superintendent.
Diane, hold on. Miss, can I help you? There is no sign-up sheet yet, so what I will do is, once the committee has had a chance to speak, if somebody wants to offer public input, I will turn it over to the community. Thank you. Yes, sure. Your point of order?
Code of Conduct rules states that you shall have a public forum at every meeting. It doesn't specify the difference between special or regular meeting. So I'm curious as to why there is no public forum here. It states it right in your code of conduct, number 1, section C, I believe.
Sure.
If you'd like
And
to take a look at that.
here is our attorney, and he just stepped in.
Sure.
So, Mr. Moffett, if you can repeat that question, please, because I just want to make sure that, hi, John, welcome.
I'm just going to read a statement and then you can just listen to it. It says, okay, so Title 16, I saw the agenda, document. So it says, requires school committees to accept and encourage a variety of opinions from the community, promote communication and understanding with the public, and conduct meetings with planned and published agendas. The Charahoe School Committee implemented these statutory obligations by adopting a rules of conduct governing its meetings. Section 1, subsection B, authorizes the calling of special meetings, but does not alter the meeting procedures or agenda requirements. Section 1C mandates that the agenda for the school committee meetings shall include a public forum, permitting only reordering of agenda items by majority vote, not elimination. Section 1, subsection D, establishes the sole mechanism for deviating from these requirements by allowing suspension of the rules only upon a 2/3 vote of the committee. Title 16 does not authorize the unilateral deviation from the adopted procedures, and absent a formal suspension of the rules, the committee remains obligated to conduct all meetings, including special meetings, in accordance with Section 1, subsection C, including public.
Okay, thank you for your input. My recollection is we did have a special meeting in August to talk about the hiring of the vendors for the Stage 1 and Stage 2 application. I don't believe that agenda had public comment on it, but John, if you want to weigh in on this, because I believe you and I talked about this yesterday, about this very topic, and that there was some ambiguity about this.
Yes, we did speak yesterday. I anticipated that this question would be asked.
Sure.
And it's my belief that 1B applies to special meetings, 1C applies to regular meetings. That being said, there is nothing that precludes the chair from allowing people to speak during the meeting. So bottom line is we all get to the same place. We may get there through different routes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So once the school committee has had a chance to talk about the topic at hand, we can take public comment. So it's going to depend on how many people stand up for public comment. So we'll get there, and once we get there, we will I will allow the public to speak. Okay, Diane, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you again.
You're
Madam
welcome.
Chair. Good evening, fellow committee members, superintendent, staff, and members of the public. Tonight, we are considering updates to the Charahoe School Committee's Rule of Conduct. These rules exist to help ensure that our meetings remain efficient, effective, and focused on the important work of serving our students families, and communities across the Charahoe Regional School District. Our current rules of conduct give us general guidelines for items such as meeting procedures, meeting times, the order of meeting agendas, Robert's Rules of Order being the guide used for our meetings, agenda development, communication, and requests for information by members, ethics, and violation. However, the lack of decorum and outbursts by members at most of our school committee meetings over the last year have highlighted the need for revisions to our rules of conduct. These revisions will strengthen and clarify certain provisions to better address behaviors that disrupt decorum, hinder our ability to conduct business, and distract from the respectful environment we all strive to maintain. The proposed updates I suggest aim to reinforce core principles of courtesy, mutual respect, and professionalism among committee members. Principles that model the same standards we expect in our schools and that support constructive collaboration on behalf of our students. These changes are not about limiting legitimate debate or differing viewpoints among committee members. Robust discussion is essential to our democratic process. Rather, they are intended to provide clearer guidelines and decorum expectations among members so that decisions can be made thoughtful and without disruptions. And our meetings can serve as positive examples of civic engagement. I believe these refinements will help our body fulfill our responsibilities more effectively while upholding the integrity and collegiality that our community deserves. In reading the feedback online from members of the public, it came to my attention that I used the word participants in my suggested language for revisions, when it should have been more appropriately said school committee members. With that being said, I make a motion to adopt the updated rules of conduct as distributed to school committee members with references to participants replaced by school committee members, and removal of the first bullet point of 5C under enforcement language. Thank you.
So thank you for that statement. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Can I just ask, so just for clarification, so you want to remove the first bullet point under C?
Under 5C, under enforcement language, correct.
Line that out. And I would make a suggestion for another additional small change. The last bullet point, just above C. It says no person shall engage. I would change that to no school committee member, as well as participants, school committee member. So it's very clear, these are the rules of conduct for the school committee members. And that's it.
Exactly.
So Diane, did you want to include that as a potential change to your motion?
Yes, I
To
would.
change no person to no school committee member?
Exactly.
Okay,
No person to no school committee member.
okay.
Correct.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Discussion. So just for clarification purposes, Diane, if I'm understanding you correctly, in your redlined version, under decorum, so 5A, under decorum, under general principles and overarching statements, I'm just making sure that I'm looking for all the words participants. So committee members, it says committee members and participants. So we are scratching and participants in that bullet.
Correct.
I'm looking to see if there's another area of, okay, so bullet number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it says all participants shall conduct themselves with courtesy, respect, and professionalism. I'm not going to read the whole thing. So that should say school committee members.
Exactly.
All right, I'm just looking to see if there's another area where
Yes,
it says
there is.
participants.
Specific behavioral expectations, bullet number 3.
Okay, so that would go from participants to school committee members.
Correct.
So in that motion, under B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it says no person, so we're gonna say there, school committee members shall engage in
Correct.
conduct. And then we are removing enforcement language, C, the first bullet.
Correct.
Did I get all that?
Yes, you
Okay.
did,
All right.
correctly.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion from the members? Jess?
So to start, I generally feel that special meetings should be reserved for urgent district matters. This is our second one within matter of months. Right in our rules of conduct, it says that special meetings may be called for grievances, student discipline hearings, personnel matters, litigation, and negotiations. But this doesn't fit any of those categories. I think it's important that we prioritize the most important topics that put our students first. I think that the suggested additions are way too subjective to feelings, bias, rather than procedure and orderly composure of meetings. You did address the fact that they blur the lines between school committee members and the public, but I also think they pose a threat to freedom of expression and who determines how we can express ourselves in these meetings. I think any revision to this policy should align with Robert's Rules of Order, which give us clear guidelines on how meetings should be organized and how we should be addressing each other. I think they should also be in compliance with the Open Meetings Act and constitutional free speech and expression protections. As mentioned in the policy, Robert's rules are an important framework. They help us maintain order and fair expression of diverse viewpoints, but they also include guidelines for taking actions if members are out of order in their conduct, which also we have at the end of the rules of conduct already. I also want to mention that Robert's rules does not give the chair authority in maintaining order. Does give the chair authority in maintaining order, but the chair can generally not remove a member from a public meeting without a vote of the school committee, which is in conflict with the suggested additions to this policy. There were points.
I think she removed that, right,
removed that.
Diane? She
Yes, I
removed
did.
that. Yeah,
Yes, I did.
so
It's
C,
hard to follow when you're making changes in a meeting. So, there were points that I agreed with, but I think as presented, as I said, they're too subjective. These edits are subject to personal feelings and interpretation. They include redundancies with the current policy and Robert's rules. So I would suggest a much shorter section, much more simple, that just is called Standards of Conduct for School Committee Members. I think we should talk about members refrain from materially disrupting proceedings or interferes with other people's ability to participate. I think members shall prepare for meetings in advance and refrain from the personal use of devices during meetings. That, to me, has been more distracting than anyone's behavior in meetings. I also think that members shall wear attire that's appropriate for a public government setting that does not display slogans, images, or messages. This is something I received several messages about from constituents that has bothered them. It's come up in meetings before. And I also would like to say that the chair may issue warnings, taking caution to ensure that rules are applied equally and not based on a speaker's viewpoint. I think that these standards are observable objectives, not based on feelings, and it makes them more realistic to enforce fairly and evenly to all members. I also was surprised that you didn't have any edits to the rest of the policy. When I want to make changes to a policy, I look at the whole policy. So there were other things within here that I thought could be added in. As far as 1D, it talks about each member having the ability to hold the floor twice, but there's a 10-minute window. So you can hold the floor twice. Robert's rules specifies 10 minutes at a time. That might be good to add here. Also, 1E, it says that the school committee may give responses. I wonder if we could broaden that to include the superintendent and administrative staff. That's a common practice that we already observe. I also wonder if we could shorten this section and just refer to the public forum policy. This is a separate policy we already have. And then I'd also like to include that school committee members can vote to extend public forum past 30 minutes if there is a motion to do so and there's a 2/3 majority vote. That's according to Robert's rules. In 1G, it says that talks about sealed executive session minutes. I think that should be expanded to discussion, proceedings, and minutes, because it's not, you're not just supposed to keep the minutes to yourselves, but also what we talk about and what happens in those meetings.
all right, so So I think we have a motion and a second on the language that Diane suggested, so.
And I'm
I think
talking
it's
about
great
the
that-
overall policy. I'd
Okay,
like to
but-
finish
but-
speaking.
But,
I'd like to
just-
finish speaking. I'm almost done.
But I understand that, Jess, so.
Do you have a point of order?
What I would like to finish my thought, though, if you give
I'm
me.
finishing my thoughts.
Oh, my gosh.
She was literally speaking and you cut her off.
First of all, you have not been recognized in the audience. This is a school committee discussion. I have not called on any member of the public. So when I open it up to the public, you can feel free to say what you need to say. But I will not tolerate tonight discussion and outbursts by the public. This is a school committee discussion right now. I'm sure you have a lot to say, and we will open it up when it's the time to open it up. So we're going to ask that you be respectful, and you just let us finish our discussion, please. Thank you.
So what I'm saying is germane to the topic at hand, and I'd like to finish my suggested changes to the policy that's on the table at the moment. 2B, I'd also suggest that we extend the time period for agenda requests from 8 days to 14 days. 3A, it starts with outside of the meeting setting. It discusses how school committee members should speak only for themselves. I think that should be during meetings as well. Sorry, let me just. Yeah, I think that we should just strike where it says outside of the meeting setting, so it just says school committee members should speak only for themselves. They should avoid giving the impression that they speak for the school committee, and I'd like to add, and the Charahoe Regional School District. This is not really in this policy, but I also would like to ask the superintendent, she's not at the table, but I'd like to discuss the possibility of requiring school committee members to undergo an annual background check, just as volunteers do for the school district. So that's what I have prepared for notes. Thank you. Thank you for letting me finish.
Sure. Okay, so you had a number of things there. So we have a motion on the table regarding Diane's specific language. So is there, I guess before we get to your suggestions, because if you have other suggested changes to the rules of conduct, I think it would be fine to consider any of those additional changes. But the motion right now is on the floor, Diane's suggested language that have been redlined. And so we had a motion and a second on that. So is there any other feedback on that? Craig?
Chair, I'm just confused by something. Why now? We're starting to come together. And this is a very divisive issue. Why would we want to do this now? We've got not much more time left as a committee. And you really want to hit the hornet's nest. So that's all I got to say.
I appreciate your feedback. I think that there have been members around the table, and I'm not going to speak for any other member but myself, but what I will say is that there have been, inappropriate outbursts that have been unbecoming. And it's I think impeded our ability to work together as a group. So I think that there needs to be some more specific guidelines just about behavior. And, Diane brought the agenda item forward. I know that there have been other members around the table that have had, a lot of, just have a lot of negative feelings about our ability or sometimes our inability to have productive discussions around the table. So I just, I don't think it's great that, we're here at this point, but I think we should come together and we should make a renewed commitment to come together for this next, year of the time that we have left. So thank you for that feedback. Linda?
Well, I'd like to just comment on that renewed commitment. You're sort of, I'm feeling a little pressured because you're not allowing, say, for Jessica's ideas to be put into, I know you made a motion and you made a second to accept as proposed, but we've never really done that before. We've always included other people's suggestions. I feel that maybe this is a policy that, like the suggestions that Jessica had suggested should be included also, because I agree with them.
Absolutely. But we had a motion on the table. So I think that if we have a motion on the table, we have to talk about the motion on the table first.
Okay.
And then if there are any other updates or any other revisions that other members have,
But if
course,
the
we need
motion
to-
on the table passes, then there's no other revision. There's no
well,
other,
but there could be another motion to make updates to the rules of conduct.
why would we want to do that?
We've done that before,
Yeah,
Okay.
where we amend the,
I still feel, I have problems with some of the language. I feel it's ambiguous. I feel it gives the chair, like, it gets to the point where I'm going to feel that, I have to be careful what I say and how I say things. Even if I do get angry at some point in time, that's okay. You've become angry at meetings. We all have. And I agree with Craig. I think that we were on a path of actually working towards together as a group, and now we're sort of back to it is derisive. I don't understand why we need to do this. And I agree with Jessica that I would rather spend my time working on things that are important to teachers and kids and learning and keeping the schools open. I don't think we need this, to be quite honest with you.
Okay.
At this point, I think if we follow Robert's rules and you as chair follows the Robert's rules, I think we could have very productive meetings. That's how I feel.
So would you categorize the outbursts in the past as productive and as, conducive to collegiality? Because I haven't felt that way.
How many outbursts? I mean, I'll say I had one outburst. I mean, so Karen had one outburst. I don't know. There's not been like lots of them. I think you're more
Let her
uncomfortable
finish.
with the public forum. I really do.
That I am what? I'm
You're
sorry?
more, I think that the most uncomfortable is some of the things that have been said, say during public forum.
I've listened to
I
everybody.
know you have, and
I've
I'm
listened
not
I've
saying you
taken it.
haven't. I know you, and as chair, I had my cross to bear. And I know other chairs have too, and you just have to, when you listen.
Yeah.
And I just feel that this is just not helpful at this point in time.
Okay. Laura and, let's see, so we had Laura,
Karen.
Karen, and I think Jess had her hand raised again.
So I think that maybe that because there is a difference of opinion sometimes, and we only have one meeting a month, that it may seem like there's only been, you or Karen, like you had said previously. But there have been multiple outbursts over the course of the last year. And I can just say from a personal perspective that to be on the receiving end of something like that from other committee members, it's not helpful. It doesn't feel very good. It's very, everybody has a different lived experience, in my opinion. So I think that, just kind of laying some ground rules like this is, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's really not directed at the public. So I think it's mainly just, the decorum with, to continue on the right path. I don't think that there's anything, outrageous in any of this stuff, to be totally honest. I think we all recognize these things, but again, we're all different people and we all interpret and take things differently. And I think that if you go back and look at multiple meetings, you can see that there are certain things that do tend to happen that make it very uncomfortable for some people. So, and I just would like to avoid that, that's all.
Thanks, Laura. Karen?
I'm going to say avoiding discomfort is not always possible. The words used in the policy in regards to decorum are about limiting free speech, giving the chair the power to silence speakers that she may disagree with. I will own the outburst that I had, but words like respectful, productive, courtesy, respectful, ridicule, anger, rudeness, impatient are subjective terms and can easily lead to unequal application. Question for the chair. Were you being respectful and courteous on June 17th, 2025, when you turned to the audience and stated, quote, "I'm not finished. I gave everybody the opportunity to express their views this month and last month. I'm going to finish my statement as Donna finished her statement last month. Don't be disrespectful." Close quote. Chair, were you angry, impatient, rude, or were you agreeable, tolerant, and impassioned? Again, these are subjective terms that can be interpreted differently person to person. During the same 6-minute speech, you stated, quote, "I am the chair of this committee, an equal member of this committee. The sooner you and the Charahoe community accept that, the sooner we can all move forward to act in the best interest of the students of this district." Again, was that professional, respectful, and courteous? Or was it demonstrative, disrespectful, discourteous? I think it is safe to say we all have our moments. But now you want to have control over what is acceptable and unacceptable. We don't need this policy. Can we all do better? Absolutely. But this speaks, this looks like, feels like, and sounds like a limitation to people's free speech, even at this table.
Okay. Jess? Polly, did you have your hand raised also?
I did.
Okay, so I'll go to Polly and then we'll go back to Jess.
Jessica suggested quite a few changes, but I was wondering if anybody had emailed in any suggestions after the agenda was submitted on Friday and sent out to the school committee members?
Members, if members
Did-
had any suggestions?
Yeah, did any
Not
send
that I-
any
not that I-
into the chair?
No, not
Okay.
any members.
I was just wondering, I had one word. And it went off of the word that she suggested we change, so I was being consistent.
So you're gonna let her finish her statement though, right?
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
I was clarifying what she said. That's a point of order, it's common.
So there was that question, and I also wanted to make a point that none of these are any good unless they're enforced. I've seen so many of these over the past 3.5 years. In my opinion, I will say, I've seen several of these rules of conduct broken, stomped upon, and misused, especially, and I suggest you all read the last paragraph of when I was censured and the procedure that went into the censuring was not followed. So I was not given a certified any kind of letter or information that I was going to be censured. I was not provided the proof of what I was being censured about. So these papers are only as good, like Gina said, as the paper they're on unless they're enforced and they're upheld by every single one of us with respect to the next one. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Polly. So Jess and then Craig.
I just wanted to follow up with, folks that have expressed discomfort at things that have been said and heard in meetings. I do think there's a recourse for that in the meeting. I think that if something happens in a meeting that you're not happy with, that we could call a point of order and call it to the attention that someone's behavior is inappropriate. And they're basing their statements on personalities rather than the issue at hand.
But isn't that subjective? So if I say somebody's behavior is inappropriate, isn't that subjective?
Not if if you call a point of order that they're off topic, that they're they're debating personalities and not issues. I think that if you think someone's out of order enough to change a policy, then you can call a point of order within a meeting. I think that's appropriate based on Robert's Rules of Order and our current code of conduct.
Okay. Craig?
John. This says rules of conduct. It's also a policy, correct?
Correct.
We have a policy subcommittee. We don't use it. Why wasn't this brought to them first?
So Diane's brought forward at one of our last school committee meetings that she wanted to have a special meeting about this topic. So actually, the superintendent and I, when we were reviewing agenda items, because our meetings have gone quite long, often, sometimes beyond 10 o'clock, Gina and I thought that if we put this item on a regular meeting, that it would again go quite long, most likely beyond 10 o'clock. And so Gina and I talked about having this as a special meeting. So that was the she and I discussed it as a team, 'cause as we review all the agenda items. So, you know, that's
So
how
that,
this
that,
came to
that
be.
that didn't answer my question. Why didn't go to the subcommittee first?
Because a member, Diane Taft, asked it to be considered as a special meeting. So here we are.
Can I just
Sure.
read the formation of policies policy? And that's something actually I asked John to look at, because there's no mention in there of a subcommittee for the policy. So there's kind of a sketchy area. It doesn't have to go to the subcommittee, because in the formation of policies, I don't know if I'm explaining it right, and I don't want to step all over John's toes, but I personally think it should mention something in there, the formation of policies, that anything we agreed to change in policies should go to the subcommittee. But that's a different topic, and I don't want to get off of this one.
Okay.
I just wanted to be helpful.
So is there any other input from the members before we go to the public? All right, so I just have, oh, sorry, Karen.
I'm going to suggest this go to the policy subcommittee. I know we've made an amendment. I mean, we've made a motion and a second. But there were a lot of verbal changes to this, and I think it should be vetted out.
Okay. Yes, of course.
Diane, just to clarify, this is you're adding to the existing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Okay. So I had a few thoughts that I wrote down on paper. So before I open it up to the public, I would just like to give some comments on this. So our school committee meetings should model the respectful civil dialogue we expect in our classrooms and our district. Members exhibiting raised voices, engaging in personal attacks, interruptions, other disruptive behaviors detract from our shared purpose of acting in the best interest to move our district forward in the spirit of excellence. In our exchanges as school committee members, we should strive to embody patience, kindness, self-control in both our words and tone, myself included. There have been occasions when voices have been raised in frustration toward one another. We should remember and be mindful that we serve the public best by choosing restraint, seeking understanding, and maintaining composure, even in disagreement. Moving forward, let us as school committee members commit to the highest standards of decorum, listening attentively without interrupting, maintaining respectful body language and tone, refraining from side conversations, and treating each other's views with respect. If members wish to share opinions about fellow members or broader matters outside of the meeting context, you're free to exercise your free speech rights through letters to the editor, social media, on your own time. However, when we convene as a public body to conduct the district's business, we must hold ourselves to the highest standards of professionalism, ensuring an environment where mutual respect and decorum guide every interaction. We face several consequential decisions ahead. As we talked about earlier in our earlier meeting, we have a fiscal year 27 budget. We have an elementary school capital improvement plan that will define our school facilities for generations. In order to deliberate these important matters and all district matters and business effectively, I feel that we must ground our discussions in mutual respect and make a renewed commitment to that. In my view, maintaining the highest standards of civility is every bit as essential and timely as the substance of the issues we are addressing. I want to thank Diane for bringing this, in what I feel is an important topic, forward for the special meeting. I think it's something that we've needed to discuss and address as a body of 12. I know tonight we're only a body of 9, but I think it's something that we've needed to discuss and address for some time, and to be candid with each other and to listen to each other. Over the last year, honestly, there have been instances where remarks aimed at myself personally have felt deeply, frankly, hateful and vile, inappropriate at times, and out of bounds. Worse, there have been times when the intensity of our discussions and votes left me personally feeling unsafe as I left our meetings. That's not how any of us should feel while serving our community as public servants. In today's climate, where political tensions too often spill into intimidations or even violence against public officials nationwide, it's more important than ever that we set a different standard here. We can and must prioritize mutual respect and safety for everyone at this table. Our district prioritizes kindness at every level. When I went to the budget meeting yesterday in the administration building, there are, I think on Greg Zenyon's door, there's something about kindness. We have kindness clubs. Kindness, reflects in the Vision 2026 strategic plan at all levels. In turn, the school committee should be that model for kindness, should be that model for dignity and respect. Whenever we fall short of embodying those values, we fail in our common humanity. Diane, I think your recommendations for revising our rules of conduct are well considered and timely. I wholeheartedly endorse them with the revisions that you made. And you made revisions that the public, I think, emailed a number of us today. And I think that I appreciate your revisions that you made. And you respected the input of the public, and I appreciate that. And you made, I think we with your revisions, you make an emphasis in placing and upholding civility and decorum among the school committee members, because these are school committee rules of conduct. And I hope that this can help us in our work together moving forward. So those are my comments. So I will open it up now to the community, if the community would like to speak. So what I would like to do is, if you would like to speak, I'm going to ask you to line up behind the podium, and I will give would anyone like to speak on this topic? Raise your hand, please. Okay, we have one person, 2 people, 3 people, 4, so 4, maybe 5. So I'll give each community member 3 minutes to speak. And I'm just going to ask each of you that raised your hands to please line up behind the other, because I would like to be mindful and respectful of time tonight. I'm trying to make sure that we don't go beyond 10 o'clock. So who else raised their hand? So if you can line up behind Mr. Stoner, I would appreciate it. Do you keep time, please? Thank you.
Ready?
Not yet. Just want to set the timer. Okay, so Laura is going to keep a timer for 3 minutes, and when the timer goes off, I'm just going to ask you to wrap it up, okay?
I won't be here in 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Stoner.
Yeah.
Please say your name and what town you're from.
So my name's Gary Stoner. I'm from the town of Richmond. I sent you an email earlier today, not early enough for the agenda. I believe the policy submitted, or that Ms. Teft submitted, was done in good faith, but I do believe it's completely redundant with already exists in terms of a school committee code of conduct, Robert's Rules of Order, and the principles for conducting oneself as part of a school committee member. If you keep in mind the first point of the school committee responsibilities, or members' responsibilities, it is to serve children first, to put the schools and the children first. And if you do that all the time, you won't need you won't need guidelines for code of conduct and so on. In any case, this proposal is completely redundant, I believe, with what already exists, but what already exists needs to be paid attention to. And secondly, I completely object to putting in the hands of this chair or any other chair the responsibility to infer what is right and what's wrong, and to determine when that person, or a person, if they've been determined to be wrong in what they're doing, how they should be cut off, or what should happen. So I believe, as Karen said, that those infringe upon issues of free speech. So that's what I have to say. I think you're essentially wasting your time, and you should be home with your families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Stoner, can I clarify something with you?
You sure
please?
can.
Can I ask, did you think, these are for all the members of the school committee. Did you think they were just for the chair? Because any member can pull up any of these and, point of order, decorum, point of order.
Ms. Teft's
So I was just
written
curious.
policy, I believe, was about all members of the school committee.
Yeah,
And I believe I read in there that the chair, or from what I could tell, the person who would be the judge would be the chair of the school committee.
For any
who
public
is-
body, the chair is,
The chair runs the
keeps
meeting.
decorum. Yep.
So I infer that that's what's in there.
Okay, thank you. I just needed clarification.
you're welcome.
How you were
Thank
thinking
you.
about it.
And your name and what town you're from, please.
My name's Debbie Miller, and I'm from Cranston, Rhode Island. Just have a few remarks. I think one of the things you should consider moving forward is to make your school committee nonpartisan. I think that would make things a lot easier on everybody. I also wanted to know what the,
Sorry, that was from the last time. Sorry, just give us a moment to reset the clock. Sorry.
go ahead.
Good? Yep. Okay.
I just wanted to know what the process is for reporting a school committee member that's perhaps out of hand. I mean, I saw that there was something for like repeated offenses, but I don't see like for the day-to-day. So like, would it be appropriate for me today to put in a formal complaint against Polly Hopkins? Because when I approached her earlier and I asked her if she could ask you where to sign up, she totally dismissed me, and I felt very, very offended when she did that. I didn't think that was professional at all. I don't think it would live up to your standards that you have here. I think that if school committee members can't act professional, then you shouldn't be sitting on the school committee. Okay? It's the same thing when you go to work. If my subordinate was unprofessional, you know what? They'd be done. Okay, if they were rude to clients that we support where I work, they'd be done, you know? And same thing for the school committee. If you don't know how to behave appropriately, then leave. I think that this whole policy that you're trying to put forth should be tabled until you could figure it out. I think that the policy subcommittee should be formatted a little bit more specifically, so you know like what goes first, what goes second. It sounds like you're very confused here. And I just want to say that the rules of conduct, I think, should be your normal, everyday way of life. So if you can't perform professionally in here and you can't perform professionally in your private life, then you shouldn't sit on the school committee. So like if, just for instance, let's just say you're on social media and you post something on your personal, okay, granted it's your personal social media, but you post something that's like a little bit unprofessional, like would you hang it on the wall behind you, like, you know, photo of Nazis and, you know, members of the LGBTQ community, would you post that? I wouldn't allow people to post that where I work. So I would suggest that the vote be taken and that you table it until you could figure it out.
Thank you. Restart.
Excuse me, Miss Debbie Miller of Cranston, could I ask you to clarify something for me? Or let me just give you some info. Well, she asked
So, Polly,
who would I
typically-
contact?
So-
And you can contact the Rhode Island Ethics Commission if you believe when you came up behind me 2 inches from my face and asked that I didn't react and you felt offended, please contact them, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
401-222-3790.
Is there standard procedure for?
So I'm going to just ask school committee members, to refrain from speaking to the public, because all of that, we really shouldn't be engaging in a back and forth during this time of public comment.
Right.
So, thank you,
Right.
Ms. Miller. I
Right.
appreciate
You know,
it.
it's like we can't speak from the sidelines. The school committee members shouldn't speak from the sidelines either. Thank you.
Typically not during public comment.
Chair.
Polly.
Sorry.
Okay.
I will clarify, only because I've been down this road. Public forum before the meeting prohibits the school committee members from interacting with the public on a large scale. You can clarify questions, you can ask things, but this is an agenda that's opened up and the public is commenting. We're allowed to have a back and forth and discussion.
Okay. Craig.
as far as I know.
For future reference, your two outbursts were wrong. And this is why you were wrong by Robert's rules.
Okay,
You-
please tell me.
You ask the chair the question. The chair will ask the person standing at the podium.
Madam Chairman, the word "you" cannot be used to another member. All remarks are addressed to
To the
you,
chair.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
thank you, Mr. Olean.
The word "you" is out of
Okay.
order. That's
Okay,
why
I haven't
was-
recognized you, Mr. Olean, but thank you. Okay, thank you, Craig.
Thank you for correcting me, sir.
Are you ready for your
I
timer?
stand corrected very often, sir.
Justin, your name and your town.
Justin Bentley, Ashaway.
Thank you.
So I'll be very quick. Thank you, Madam Chair, we had engaged in dialogue back and forth, and thank you for allowing public forum. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I was afraid that wouldn't happen, and thank you, Ms. Teft, for striking the language. The word participants was, I think, why many, many people are here now in the room. We're
Okay.
a little leery. So just for clarification, all of the items we were discussing apply solely to the school committee, not to the public.
Correct. At least that's what her revisions reflect.
Okay, so I just, at times, I it was mentioned earlier, the fear of limiting freedom of speech, being able to express oneself. I would really appreciate if we would be allowed to, as long as it's not disruptive to the meeting during public forum, to express our approval without being boisterous. You know, if something's said that we feel passionately about that, great for Charlo schools, I would like to be able to, from the audience, express my approval. So
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, Justin.
Catherine Giusti from Hopkinton. With all the changes that you've made tonight, I think it's very unwise to vote on this policy tonight. I think that you have fundamentally changed what your initial thoughts were. I think that taking the enforcement language out of it, while I appreciate that, I don't understand why any of the rest of them are necessary. I also appreciate that it's not applied to participants because that is against everybody's freedom of speech. I understand that these meetings are uncomfortable. You know, I was the chair during meetings. Linda was a chair. Craig was a chair when they were very uncomfortable. We had people with signs and a picket line out front. We had people yelling at us from the audience. You're always going to have some level of discomfort. You should not feel personally unsafe. And if you feel personally unsafe, that's a problem. And that's something you need to address with someone who's making you feel that way. But I think you're taking this too far. You have a difficult job, Chair, already. And to now add onto your plate that you need to, on the fly, make a subjective decision as to whether you think someone else is going to be aggrieved by the tone that someone else is using makes that job impossible. Not only for you, but these are rules that you're making for any other chairperson who comes after you. So I think these are unwise. I understand and do appreciate the conversation. But I think if you're really serious about making these revisions, it should go back to the policy subcommittee so that you can maybe lower the temperature a little bit, have some more time. Jess had many suggestions. I don't think you're prepared to make the decision tonight. You shouldn't be prepared with all of the new information that's been brought forward to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jess?
Just to add on to what Catherine just said about revising, I think if we really truly are in the spirit of collaboration and working together, I think that the edits I suggested are valid. I think that they deserve to be considered. I don't think we should rush ahead to put in changes that have already been changed from the initial one that we all just heard right here. I think if we do want to work together on this, there's a better way to do it than to just push forward with these changes, if we truly do mean what folks are saying.
Greg?
Greg Abedesian from the town of Hopkinton. I guess first off, I'd like to just recognize item 11 out of Title 16 in the education. I believe this was in your packets. Recognize that the first and greatest concern must be the educational welfare of the students attending the public schools. I don't think that I agree with Member Luzon that I don't think that these changes are going to make you more effective group in implementing your charge as school committee members. I get it. It's difficult. I've been there where you are, and I understand, Louise, that I've been someone who's had a couple of outbursts. It's been a while. I've tried to maintain control, and I know that I have directed some of my comments towards you. And in my opinion, I think I had some valid points, but I don't want to go there. My feeling is this. I think it's a tough job, and I've been there. I have been at the end of where you are now. And yeah, you just have to bear with it. And I respect the job that you guys are doing. I believe it or not, I will thank you all for your service. But I think moving on this is premature. I think Member Purcell has some very good points. There's nothing to stop you from either tabling it or amending it based on some of the other suggestions from the members. But I think you're rushing into something. And I think in the end, if you do this, it's just going to make the divide between the members even wider.
Thank you. Your name and the town where you're from, please.
Simon Manlove, Hopkinton.
Hi.
The stated aim of these changes to the policy was to enable productive discussion between the members of the school committee and to make sure that that discussion is respectful in nature. However, given the language of the current proposal, I do not believe that it adequately actually addresses that concern, and that the language used is vague in a manner that makes it unhelpful for that purpose and possibly dangerous to include for its use in other purposes. Specifically, the changes that were made at Madam Test's proposals earlier this meeting in order to change the language from referring to participants and members to only referring to members, I believe are very important and a good change. However, that does not address the fact that several of the clauses and points in the language currently on the floor do not have a subject. There is no subject mentioned in the line. It does not say members. It does not say participants. It does not say anybody. And therefore, it is open to interpretation whom that language may be construed towards or against.
Okay.
In addition to that, the language of this proposal as a whole is linguistically inconsistent with the rest of the document. It does not use a formalized language stating whom it applies to, whom it will be enforced by, how it applies, and under what circumstances it applies that are included in the rest of the clauses of the school committee's code of conduct. For this reason, it is also very broadly applicable in situations that do not apply to its stated purpose. In addition to this, many of its provisions of when it shall apply use words that do not have a definitive meaning under its own definitions. The Code of Conduct does not specifically and rigorously define the terms that are used in this particular edition, nor are they specifically defined anywhere in other legal documents that are referred to in this Code of Conduct. Which means that all of its provisions are extremely open to interpretation. In light of that, I would consider it not even for reasons of any of this policy, but simply for reasons of the vagueness of the entirety of the procedure and its openness to possible legal challenge, frankly.
Well, may I just interject if you don't mind? So our attorney did review Diane's suggested revisions. So I don't believe that Mr. Anderson had any issues with the language that was brought forward.
Very well.
All right,
May I
thank you.
continue
I'm
my
gonna have to
statement?
hold you there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we vote?
We
To
have-
allow him to continue? Can we vote to overrule your ruling?
So we need a 2/3 majority to vote to have him to continue? Okay,
I'm not sure. Can we ask John, Mr. Anderson?
we need a
If it's
2/3
simple-
vote to
a
extend,
simple-
yep.
There's some that need a simple majority and there's some that need a 2/3. I'm not sure.
This
what
is a 2/3.
I believe it's 2/3.
It's a 2/3.
Okay,
So-
I make a motion to allow the speaker to continue.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, go ahead, continue. So you have another minute.
Very well. Thank you,
welcome.
Madam Chair. For these reasons, I would consider it not a problem of the policy contained in these revisions, but simply unwise at the current time and state of this revision to attempt to put this language and these particular ideas into effect as a official policy. This needs additional polish. This needs clarification as to exact standards, and this needs to be definitive and objective in a way that his language is currently not.
Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Goldie Williams, Richmond. I want to say that there was a time when Laura and Louise got attacked and they needed a police escort out of this meeting. And I didn't think that was right. And as for being for all kids all the time, not by me, especially my oldest son. Thank you.
Bruce?
Gonna keep this well under 3 minutes. Bruce Olean, Richmond. I want to start with a small apology to Madam Chair. Generally speaking, some member of the public has a right to raise a point of order or a point of privilege, which I did incorrectly. You
Apology
raise it
accepted.
to the chair lady, person who must say, what is your point of order? I skipped that step, so I apologize for that.
No problem.
Secondly, in a positive spirit, this is pretty good stuff overall. I commend Diane Teft for trying to write the policy. I think it's well meant. I have a couple of things that are wrong with it. Being a Christian and starting with our Jewish roots, the 10 Commandments are all thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. That's why a lot of people say, what should I do? Well, that's why we have Matthew 5 that says the peacemakers, the humble and whatnot. You get my point. The point is it comes across, I don't want to address Diane, that's incorrect. Madam Chairman, although it's well written, and I'm an English teacher, grammatically correct and all what, I loved it. It's very negative. I would suggest it go to a committee. I've been on many committees in my education days. When we had a policy, we usually had one person write it and then sit down and tear it apart and say, ooh, I don't like that word. Ooh, let's change that word to that one. You got to have at least 3 or 4 linguistically aware people, and no disrespect to the author. I think she was very well intentioned. Again, it comes across as a tad negative. 10 years from today, if somebody reads this policy, they're going to say, what the heck was going on at Charahoe then? Did they sell tickets? And it's the week before the Super Bowl. Being a little facetious, but I want it to be more positive because you people are about to be more positive. It's almost like it's contradictory to some extent to where you're going. So, and to wrap it up, I would like it to go to a small group people who carry it forward with the intention, strike out or minimize some of the negative words, thou shalt not, and let's put in the do things. Robert's Rules of Order can be summarized in one sentence. Civil behavior for a deliberative body to move forward. Simple is the key word. Ooh, this thing's jumping around. So anyway, you got my point. I would suggest that you table it for the time being. Good idea, good opportunity. Get that thing, tear it apart, put it back together again, try to have a positive tone. So 10 years from today, people will read it and say, they did a good job. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. So I think that the bullets that Diane put forward, for the most part, are in a positive context. Committee members are encouraged to model the respectful behavior we expect of students and staff in our schools. All communications, whether spoken or written, should reflect the highest standards of professional decorum and avoid any appearance of bias, discrimination, or disrespect. So I think I would push back on you a little bit, Bruce, about the thou shalt not. And I appreciate your feedback on that. You know, I appreciate, and I think all of us appreciate your feedback. So with that being said, we do have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Are we ready to vote on this? Laura?
So if there's an amendment made, so Jess had referenced a lot of things, and it was a lot for me to process in one setting. So I'm just wondering if it can be, you know, I like Diane's piece of this. I think that it's good and that it should go on, you know, as the, you know, bullet that she has. What is this?
Rules of conduct?
Under the decorum, how she has that listed. I think it is a good idea to, you know, to add that in there, but I also think that with the amount of additional things that Jess suggested, that perhaps that piece, since there were so many, could go to the policy subcommittee, which we've already been told by Gina that that's policy subcommittee will not be meeting until after budget season is over, just because of the time of year, so.
Okay. All right, so members, we do have a motion on the floor and we have a second. Are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor of moving forward with the decorum section of the rules of conduct, as Diane noted, with her revisions, raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Can I make a motion to send it to the subcommittee as well?
So you're making a motion for your revisions to the rules of conduct to go to the policy subcommittee?
Well, for the whole policy to go for review. And yeah, so I could make my revisions as well,
So, I mean,
not for a specific reason.
for what's gonna go to the policy subcommittee, I mean, if the school committee voted on including this language as part of
Right,
decorum,
but
so it has been adopted as
Right.
now as part of the rules of conduct. So I have not recognized you. This is the second time that you've disrupted. So, okay, so I'm gonna ask you to just refrain from disrupting. No, it was the second, but that's okay. Linda?
Well, I want Jessica to finish and then I'll.
Multiple folks expressed interest at incorporating my amendments, and I understand why they didn't want to be made right now, but also Ms. Teft had changes that were rolled into this document. I still think there's a lot of discussion that could be had, and I
Sure.
would like it to go to the policy subcommittee.
Sure. So if you want to put that forward at our next school committee meeting about if you have revisions to the rules of conduct for some other items, either it's meeting procedures or agenda
Can I
development,
make a motion now?
if
to
you'd
do
like
that?
to.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I make a motion to send this policy to the policy subcommittee for
Second.
further revision.
Second. Okay, it doesn't matter.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So just to clarify, this would be regarding not what we had all just discussed at length. This would just be in reference to the ones that you had spoke about previously, correct? I'm just trying to
Other
understand
people
that.
could make other changes as well. I don't think it can be specific.
So I'd just like to weigh in on that. I mean, we just had a discussion on this and we voted. So now to go back and make suggested revisions to whatever
You
Diane,
completely ignored my suggestions.
then Jess, make a motion to.
I was.
Oh, but we can only consider one motion at a time. And the motion was for Diane's language. So again, please stop interrupting. Please stop interrupting. So you are not recognized by the chair. But, okay, but this is exactly why we need rules of decorum among school committee members. And also, when the policy subcommittee meets, I hope that the policy subcommittee would consider rules of decorum and suggestions for decorum, because we can't have people from the audience, disrupting a public meeting. It's just not appropriate. And I think everybody around this table can agree on that. So I would like to, so we have a motion on the table, we have a second. Do you want to restate the motion, Madam Clerk?
What I have is that the motion is for the whole policy to go before the policy subcommittee with.
So we have a second, but what's ambiguous, I think, what's ambiguous for Laura is if whatever we just passed is now going to be reconsidered, because
Right, then what was the point?
then what
I
was the
guess?
point of the? Yes. So, Mr. Moffett, can you just hold on one
can.
second? Thanks.
I think the policy, even what we just approved, or you just approved, can go to the policy subcommittee and be discussed, and then it's gonna come back to be voted on here, correct? So I think even though you voted on some of the word choice, I think some of the word choice could be looked at, even in the decorum section. Jess's suggestions could be vetted out. The whole policy could be rewritten. There were a lot of changes, even to Ms. Teft's piece, that may look differently once it's all typed up.
So, I think that we just had a discussion about this. We had a majority vote. It was a 5-4 vote. Now to go back and suggest changes when we had a discussion about it, and now we're gonna have another discussion about it in a subcommittee, to me seems redundant and unnecessary and not respectful of what the majority just voted. That's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. So, hold
Point
on.
of order, I mean, I would like to add to this, that once you open up the discussion to vote and review and amend the Charter Oak School Rules of Conduct, you open it up to the whole rules of conduct. This isn't just for Diane Teft's amendment. Once you open up discussion for this and they vote on it, you open up the whole code of conduct. So Jess has standing in her comments. This meeting has not been adjourned, okay? You can ask your attorney if that, I served on a town council. I know when you open something up, that's how it happens,
Sure.
okay? So if you would like to possibly ask Mr. Anderson that question, I would appreciate that, and I think everyone here would appreciate that.
Okay. So I'll go to Craig first, and then I'll ask John to weigh in on this.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just look at how many times this has already been revised, this policy. Okay, it's been revised 10 times posted. So that's,
Okay, thank you. John?
It's my opinion that the motion is within the scope of the agenda item, and any member of the school committee can make a motion with regard to the agenda item. If there's a second, then the motion needs to be considered.
Of course. Okay. So again, we do have a motion and a second. So my feedback on this, and we're on the discussion part of the motion, right? My feedback on this is similar to Laura's, that we had discussion on this. There was language added to the rules of conduct. I don't know why the decorum section would be revised or revisited again at the policy subcommittee level. That's just my opinion. So, Karen?
Nobody's saying that it is or isn't, but the policy should go back to the policy subcommittee so that Jess's suggestions can be discussed and possibly incorporated.
Sure. I don't think there's any disagreement on that. If you have other adjustments that you want to look at for the rules of conduct, and there were a number of them, and I'm sure you know, most of them are really good suggestions. If you want to make, if you want to discuss those at length at the policy subcommittee level, and then bring those prospective revisions back with a red line, just like Diane brought this forward tonight, I don't think that there's any disagreement on that among
That's
among the
exactly
table.
what the motion is, yeah.
That's exactly.
Well, I just gave you my opinion. I don't think that the decorum section should be looked at because we already discussed it and we voted on it. So we have, all right, so we have a motion and a second for this to go to the policy subcommittee. So all those in favor? Okay, unanimous. Great. Okay, so there was another agenda item on our agenda tonight, and I think there was a little bit of ambiguity and maybe a miscommunication on this. The item was discussion and vote to review and amend the Code of Management Principles and Ethical Standards for School Committee Members. And I think Angela thought that I brought that agenda item forward. I didn't, so I don't have anything to add or suggest to this but it is on the agenda, so if anybody has anything that they want to discuss or add to that,
That's a state.
speak now, or Polly.
I make a move to table this agenda item to
Or
a further
really
date.
file
We
it,
don't.
right?
Well, no, I was just covering my butts because it's on the
Okay. Well, thank you.
thing.
All right.
Table it to indefinitely.
All right, so we have a motion to table indefinitely. Do we have a second? We have a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, did you get that, Madam Clerk?
I only have 25 votes. Yes, thank you.
So,
Really change it.
motion carries. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. Well, anyone opposed? Okay,
You're gonna stay here tonight, correct?
have a good night.